Okay, you're live. You're all set.
I would like to call the IT committee to order and also the finance committee to order. So first order of business is I need a motion from someone in the IT committee to accept the minutes of August 31, 2022. Motion by Tim, second by Cassie and Henry. Any omissions, corrections? All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Carried. Second item is the county attorney, cybersecurity officer.
Cybersecurity report should have gotten in your materials, showing that this isn't going away. Can't declare this issue over either. A very large county shall not be named and might actually be on the eastern or western half of Long Island. Was recently hacked. It looks like a ransomware attack. One of the interesting things is they can't pay anybody, or so it's not just a service oriented thing. They can't even conduct business because they can't cut checks and do things like that. So we did a really, I thought, good cybersecurity data exercise not too long ago. They pointed out some of those issues for us too. So we're going to start thinking about what we do with something like that. So it's still out there and it's still happening. And my PayPal account was frozen the other day. I got to, which is interesting since I don't have a PayPal account. So all those emails, please don't click on them.
Just because I'm kind of on the ignorant side on this stuff, can they track down where, how they got in, where the fault was, or where the weakness was? Can they tell that?
Yeah, they're
To
working.
benefit every other county that hasn't had that experience.
Yeah, I'll let Terry get that. They can, but oftentimes it's a door you left open.
Yeah, but you could trace it down and
Right.
find the weak. Okay, that's
So the
all.
hope is to trace it down and then it's up to the county whether they will check.
Right.
So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So normally you firmly slam the barn door. Galaxy for sunset, and then hope that that's why we fish. That's why we do all these exercises that we do, because you only have to be wrong once. They can send out 50 million emails a day or 50 million phishing attacks a day, and they only have to hit on one to make it, to make an impact sometimes. So there has been a claim that it's ransomware. Now they're still working through whether or not. It's just like everything else, something happens and somebody will immediately claim responsibility for it. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. They've also threatened to publish some of the documents they've gotten off the county system and everything there too. So yeah, they were posting it. So it's out there, and so we're going to keep pushing our folks to do the trainings to make sure that they're taking confidence, and I think our reporting's going up. That fish button we have, people are using it, and we'd rather have you say it is, be worried about it being phishing and not being, than not report it and have it be something that can open itself to something like this. And it only takes, it's not like a burglary where somebody's back there working the tools. It's a 1 second thing. Boom, it goes in and it's not. So that's something we do. Karen went to conferences and has been speaking quite a bit. And she went to the sustainability office to lead these elder Asian people expo that they have. I think that's been well received. The last time she went, to try to help some of those people that aren't as computer literate to what to look out for. I've got in-laws that are older and they get upset. They see emails that are telling them all these bad things are going to happen. They're really just pushing it back in disguise. So the more we can get that out there to the public. And then working with our not only our vendors, but some of the towns that interconnect with us, because that's oftentimes the way people come in is through an email from a trusted vendor or something who's been compromised. So I'll make sure we're looking at that and then some of our contracts. And then finally, October is Cybersecurity Month. So I will, with the concurrence of this committee, ask to do a proclamation to that effect, if I will write. So you can see it.
Question, Roger. So NYMER had their cybersecurity awareness training last Thursday. Could we be looking at being part of those trainings?
We're using that platform. platform and one other platform, which is what.
So we use Notafloor, and I know we made the offer, but I made it again for the board. If any of the towns are interested, we have some licensing we could allocate to the towns for the cybersecurity training for the program that we've already developed. You know, put in place for the employees. The one thing we can't do for the towns unless you're on your own domain, like a 365 platform, is fish. So if you're on 365, we can potentially fish as well. But as of right now, we certainly can offer the training.
And we can send somebody down, actually physically meet with their employees and talk to them too.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's the best.
We could do a training just like that, you know, to put it up on the screen, have everybody in the room, instead of doing the individual, or you can require your employees to go to an individual and get a certification. It is an interactive training. The NIMR training is also good, you know, so I'd say either one of those, as long as they're training, I think it's great.
We're requiring that now.
Any other questions for Roger? Right, Terry,
Just don't read our emails. And there's no issue with that. Just don't read our emails and we will have.
you
I
read
guess we have a bunch of stuff to go through today.
Yeah. So I'd like to start, I guess, with just the reports, the standard project update report and the ticketing report, and see if anybody has any questions on either of those. We can jump into some budget stuff.
any questions on the report? Okay. Moving forward, we'll now jump into the budget start. And for your review and your manual, IT revenues in 6 and 7, and the expenses on 42 to 46. Correct. All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, we can, I guess it's your preference. We can start a couple ways. We can just run through the budget, go line by line through it. If you want to, or if you want to take each section at a time and ask questions. I've also put together for everybody, you should have a packet in front of you, something that I hope would help the process as we go forward in the future. I know one of the things when I was hired at the county, I don't know, 4 years ago, if you can believe that already, was really putting into place, you know, the 5-year plan, as well as asset replacements. So an asset replacement schedule. So I have that here today because I thought it might help to lend to the larger picture of what the budget incorporates. And so you'll see that some of the expenses are up this year compared to last year. And I'd like to be able to say this is the only year they're going to be up, but I thought looking at a 5-year plan might help you to understand the cycle of some of the bigger things that were pulled out of the capital projects back when Chris was here. So back a couple of years ago when we pulled IT out of capital projects, and now they're going into the budget line, it will fluctuate a little bit. So in the handouts, you'll see the IT capital plan for 5 years. It's 5 years, and as you can see, as it gets out towards 26 and 27, it's a little less sparse. But I also wanted to give you on the second page the equipment replacement plan. So you can take a look at the different type of equipment we have, what the expected life cycle of that equipment is, so that you'll see there's several big ticket items that maybe have a cycle of 6 years. So they're not going to be, you're not going to see them in the next 5-year plan until it comes back around. So I know it's a lot to digest, but I just thought it might give you an idea.
You said exactly going into high paid items, you know, on this page, it'd be beneficial to see equipment with the price.
Well, I can't necessarily do that.
It'll change.
So that's why I put it on the 5-year plan. I wouldn't feel comfortable going out more than 5 years. And even when you get out 5 years, I mean, the cost of IT equipment is changing so much, it's hard to do. But that's why I did the 5 years. I thought that would help. And that really does attribute accurate costs, at least for the first couple of years.
So just to make sure people understand, is your 2023 requests are already in this budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they are. Yeah, this is not an additional ask. These are some of the big ticket items that are in the budget.
So what I suggest we do is go through the revenues and only talk about any deltas that people have questions on. changed from last year, some things.
It's all your departmental, that's basically all the money she makes is charging the rest of the county.
Yep.
So there's really not much there.
So then we can go into 42 and start going through, and if you could highlight requests you have. In terms of that, we also need to bring up the personnel request you have.
Do you want to do that now? So I can do that now. There's actually page 3 that's on the packet that I handed out to everyone. I thought that it might help a little bit because some of the requests I have this year, there are quite a few. And so I just wanted to kind of go through and talk about personnel requests a little bit. So, so as an overall, there's not a lot of requests, I guess, from a budgetary perspective. I'm just going to ask for one new position, and that is for a help desk person. It's a level 1 help desk to be able to run the help desk and be able to respond to people. What we struggle with in IT, and probably a lot of other places too, is just lack of efficiency. And so the way that it's structured right now is you have a couple people on the front lines. One was the electronics technician that we took on last year, replaced a microcomputer specialist with it, in the hopes that we'd be able to cross-train. And the reality is there is so much phone work and camera work and cabling work that although we can cross-train a little bit, I'm never going to get the help desk resources that I need out of that one position. So I know we've talked about it last year too, and I know I said I was going to be coming back this year and asking for a help desk person. So that is what I'm asking for next year's budget, is to add a help desk person so that we can efficiently respond to help desk calls, not have people having to leave voicemails when they call, because that drives me insane, and be able to just, be able to have a single call solution for when people call in and they have a problem.
Terry, that's the title of systems engineer.
Yeah, so I should probably talk about the title changes to begin with. So when you look at the IT department, I feel it's kind of in the dark ages. I mean, we have one position called a microcomputer specialist. I don't know if anybody can tell me what a microcomputer is. That goes back to the data processing days when we were called data processing and not information technology. We also have network analysts, which we don't analyze any networks. I'm going to be really honest with you. I mean, do we? Yes, but really what those people do are projects. And so I wanted to look at restructuring the department to be able to move forward into the future and be able to assign titles to the positions that will appropriately define what they're looking for, and I'm hoping help in recruitment. So when you look at standardizing out for the information technology world and what the positions are called so that we can actually be able to move forward. My entire department, with the exception of 3 of us, will be retiring within the next 4 years max. The first retirement starting this year, or 23.
So have you talked to Danielle about these positions? I was make sure they're in civil service.
Yep. So we've gone through, we did the new position duty statements. We've talked about the retitling, so she is aware we've been working together on moving that forward.
Okay.
So the help desk position is what I would like to call a systems engineer. From my previous work life, they were systems engineers. I know engineer might sound funny to some people, but it really is how they're described. If you were to go online and type in systems engineer, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of frontline computer jobs. I wanted to steer a little bit away from the word help desk, because in the past, my understanding is IT did have a help desk person, but what that help desk person did was essentially answer the phone, say reboot your computer, and create a ticket. And that's not what I'm looking to bring into the IT world. I don't want somebody just to do that. I want somebody that's technical, that can answer the phone, fix the problem, log into the person's computer, be done, open the ticket, close the ticket, done. I don't want to hand things off, because then, you call people back, you end up playing phone tag, and it just isn't efficient. So, so that's what I'm looking for as far as a new position to add. I talked about the title change, the systems engineer, microcomputer specialist, adding the systems engineer. So the second title change I'd like to change is the network analyst position. Currently, we have 2 network analysts. One of them is retiring in early 23. I'd like to take that opportunity to change that title to project engineer, because the hope is that that is what those people are going to be focusing on, as projects, no longer frontline ticketing, which is what they're doing right now. So right now, the tickets come into IT, the help desk person gets them, they can't solve them, they end up escalating to these 2 network analysts. And these network analysts that are supposed to be working on projects are working on a project and then get a phone call from somebody that needs help. They have to run and try to fix it, come back and where was I on this project? And it's constant interruptions all day, and it's not efficient. We end up outsourcing more projects than we should because we don't have the efficiency in-house to be able to actually focus on the projects. So I'd like to change the network analyst title to project engineer. And if I go too fast with this and you guys want to stop me at all, let me know. And then I'd like to create a new title called senior project engineer and promote one of the current network analysts into that position. That particular network analyst has a lot of skills that are not currently being used in the way that they could in the most efficient manner.
Is there a grade change involved with that?
Yeah, so it would go from a grade 18, which is the current network analyst, to a 20,
Okay,
which would be for the senior project engineer. You know, they'd both be changing to project engineers, and then senior project engineer would be the new one.
Okay.
And then the last thing would be an increased grade for the new service manager position. And again, I know your titles may not, but what this person does is going to be running all of the help desk and coordinating the projects. So they really are controlling service for the entire, the service delivery is really what they're responsible for to the end users, which is everybody that we support. I have that position out there. I haven't received a single application. And I'm going to be very candid with all of you guys that the salaries in the IT department are not what they are in the private sector, and they're not competitive, and I'm going to struggle. And so I'd like to request to bring that one up from a 20 to a 21, so that they are at, actually, I think I just got that wrong. I think they're currently a 21, and I'd like to bring them to a 22, so that they are 2 grades higher than the highest person that they're supervising. I think that's appropriate. And I may honestly come back and if I can't fill this position and be asking to do more. But it's been out there now for over a month, and I've tried recruiting some people I know too, and people I'd like to have in the position. There's a couple, and I can't touch them. Honestly, I can't touch them. They're all making over $80,000 a year somewhere else.
What's our rate?
What's that?
What's our rate at?
68,000 is what it comes out to at the current rate. So it's going to be challenging.
any other questions for Terry?
Through all of these, we talked about not only the title, but the change of job description and responsibilities.
Yeah, the job, yes. So as the title comes, the job description itself is fairly close.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, we can certainly we're definitely going to look to broaden that a little bit.
It's interesting because as you were talking, the efficiency of the department depends on everybody knowing what the jobs are.
Right.
So just so people know on these personnel requests, we go from here to personnel. I do not believe any of these new positions or grade changes we're going to see through the next few meetings are in the budget. Is that correct, Melissa?
That's correct.
So whatever your budget says, any personnel increases are in addition to what the increases or the budget line items are here. Thank you. Dan?
And kind of along the same line, maybe, you gotta refresh my memory, maybe. If we agree to upgrade from a 21 to a 22 and put it in the budget and adopt it, then if we give a 2% raise across the board to everybody, does that 2% increase to grade 22 or does it increase to grade 21?
The increases on all the grades.
So, but it all happened at the same time, so I didn't know if it was the grade 21 increase and they bumped to a 22, or are you increasing the
So if
22?
you're in 21 and you go to a grade 22, in 2023, that 22 will have the 2.5% or whatever
Okay.
that raises. at.
So that number is bigger, yeah.
Yes.
When you get there, okay, just, I didn't want to make sure that.
Matt?
So just so I'm clear, none of the personnel requests as far as new positions or upgrades that we're gonna hear from any department heads are in the budget. But yet, the things that are in the budget, the increase in the 0.4s, the increase in the 0.2s, they're already baking the cake.
They're making.
They're already included in here.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on, just run through I'd like to run through the places where there's increases, for example, computer equipment, as you talked about, I guess talking about your capital requests.
Yeah, so as we as we go through the different departments or different segments in the budget, I think that the IT budget maybe is a little bit different than other departments in the sense that they're never truly going to be close, with the exception of the maintenance contracts and the subscriptions. The other things are just going to be completely different things every year, and they're not going to repeat. The maintenance contracts and the subscriptions are the only two categories that will repeat. We have consolidated some additional things in here. Did you want to start with the computer equipment,
Yeah, yes, please.
which is the 2020? What is the board's preference? Would you like me to go through these kind of line by line and talk about what each item is, or do you want to present me with any questions on anything I put in here? I've tried to be detailed with the budget to put in the department that was related as well, so that everybody knows kind of where everything lives.
Matt?
So the amended budget for this year is 335, and your request is for 800, but it's already figured in here. I understand that, which is fine. You want to do more.
Well, it's not doing more, so
It's
it
getting
kind of
more.
goes back to the 5-year replacement plan.
Right,
And looking, we have some big equipment in for this year.
right.
Yeah.
So I see that. And is the 2023 IT capital plan, is that factored in here
Yes.
also? It is.
It is, it's already.
They're both
factored. It's not
baked in the
additional.
cake.
Yeah, I was just trying to give more detail
Okay.
on the bigger ticket items.
Well, we understand all these items really thoroughly, especially, the ASUs and the other things we're very confident.
I figured. But I can run through them if you want some more detail. I'm happy to do that. Or I just didn't.
I'll fully understand whatever you say, I'm sure.
Maybe one of the board of us would.
Jerry, just while we're here, I just wanted to for me personally, I really appreciate the 5-year capital plan sheet.
When Chris was
The
here,
only thing that I would like to see is the
the
replacement.
major capital plan ownership, that was
The
taken.
difference between the only
That's
two
a big.
men.
We bounced back and forth every year just to continue this.
We always.
Great.
Three quarters.
Oh, okay.
I think we'll give a clearer picture of the real capital.
I can do that.
But we do that, this capital plan, yeah, replacement plan.
It's a little hard to hear here.
I can understand that.
Can we have one conversation, please? It's hard to hear up here. Okay, go ahead. So any other questions for Al, you finished?
Yeah, it was a request.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yes, Carol.
How do we smooth it out? How do we smooth out the roller coaster?
Funny you should ask.
No, I'm
So that's why we
seriously,
started.
Here,
the-
no, I'm not being facetious.
No, absolutely,
The
because,
capital group met this morning, and I think
Want to make the roller coaster?
yeah,
Supervisor Feather, I think, is gonna be talking about that in the near future, so. I don't know if she wants to address it now while you're on while your question is asked.
Oh, we'll do it.
I just wanted to say that this is as capital plan. This capital plan is in the budget. It's not to be confused with the capital plan working on the capital group.
I agree with
But how you fund it is a legitimate question.
yeah, that's a concern. When you get those big ticket items like servers, and stuff like that, and you have no idea what that server's gonna roll in at, what it costs.
Mhm.
Some of the software will bite us pretty hard, refreshes on that. That's just, it's just, looking at last year's compared to this year, it's a steep climb, right?
So a couple of years ago, we talked about was we took IT costs out of our overall capital budget and put it in year to year because it's replacement costs. But again, I don't think we've looked at having this steep a climb in a couple of years, so we should think about a way to smooth these out.
So my suggestion for smoothing things out is as we continue to move through the plan and the replacement cycle, I think the problem, or one of the things we've struggled with in the past is that we didn't have a good replacement cycle. And so you'd wait till things died, and then they died, and we do it all at one time. And so some of the things should be done all at one time, but it's a matter of trying to get things year over year, in my opinion, so that each of the 5 years, every year is sort of consistent. So is it $500,000, and replace, plans every 5 years-ish, each year? Probably, but it's gonna take a replacement or so to get us there. You know what I'm saying? So that we can start to cycle through like you guys did prior to me coming on, computer purchase where you purchased a whole bunch of computers at one time. And now that that big purchase was made, we're finally able to say, okay, these computers can last 6 or 7 years. These, we're switching out to laptops, they need to be replaced first. And now we're on, I would say, a pretty consistent replacement cycle where we're replacing about $150,000 worth of desktop/laptops each year. Last year was a little bit different because we had all the COVID stuff and we went and purchased a whole bunch of laptops. And we've been so far able to repurpose most of those loaner laptops into actual workstations for people. And I found the trend to be a shift from desktops to laptops. And so, which I think is a better, I don't care for people having 2 different devices, have one device, plug it in when you're here, take it home when you're not. And we have the ability to work like that.
Jay, do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna answer Daryl that before you were on here, we had this ups and downs and we had a line set with, I forget, 500 or 750,000 because we knew you were gonna be drawing on it every year a certain amount.
Oh, the
So
IT
that-
reserve.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So,
we kind of went away from that, I guess, Al, right?
so back to Supervisor, your question, one of the options to the board is, we do have an IT reserve, right now it currently has 272,000. If the board could commit to, so if you have $1.5 million over 5 years, and you want to commit $300,000 a year, you can take that, you can achieve that smoothing that you're talking.
Yeah, it is life cycle replacement.
Right.
Okay, it's not that.
It's committing to that ongoing funding of the reserve that gets that smooth.
I would recommend that as a consideration. If we have call it life cycle, life cycle replacement.
The beautiful thing is you have it set up already, you just need to fund it.
So fund it and name it accordingly, so we all know what it's for.
Is somebody officially taking these notes for Brian?
Brian is watching on YouTube.
Hi, Brian.
He says it's the best audio that he's ever, it's really, really good
Oh,
today.
Good.
He's hearing what we're saying.
good.
So if you're gonna say something bad about him,
So if you look at the next 2 years, it's 528 and 600,000 projected for next year. So already we're at a point where do we implement that this year or next year? It's pretty hard to take when we're spending $801,000 this year proposed on the budget, is to then add another $300,000 to start that reserve plan now. So how do we sort of work that into the budget?
And so in theory, Chairman, if you fund this 823,
Mhm.
you in theory could start the 324 because the 300 is already baked into the 8. Because it's part of the 5 year that she already presented to you. So if you pass this 8 as is, the 300 is kind of already baked into it. And then you really, then you start in 2024 with your new commitment to the reserve.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that?
Al, this budget, the way it's constructed now, we're gonna adjust it, whatever. It's still looking at a 1% tax increase, levy increase.
1% tax increase, $2 million increase in
Right,
sales tax, and 3.
I mean, if it was at 8% and we go up to 800,000, I'm gonna have a coronary, but if it's 1% or less and we can make it work, then it's pretty easy to take. Okay, I just want to know the lay of the land before.
Yes, sir. You're good.
Any other significant changes in some of the budget lines?
You're on the question.
You're on fine.
Well, the question is for the committee, really, all the supervisors is, when you look at year over year, what you started out with, what you actually got, what's the strategic risk if we don't do that 800?
Then you're gonna have to do it next year.
So we're deferring, we're not creating vulnerabilities for ourselves that we're gonna.
Right, there are some things that you could decide you don't want to do, like, so if you look at the 2020 line, that is really on the bulk of the newer, quote unquote, newer things. And part of those are things like upgrading our camera system, which is something we started, we're looking to add the LEC into the rest of the county. So that's a new project. Could you decide not to do that? Sure. Could we limp along on the cameras we have over there for a little bit, but then next year, they're all gonna start blowing up and we're gonna have to decide which way to go. I'm personally of the mindset, I would prefer to replace things before they break and not be in emergency mode saying, oh my gosh, and now we don't have any time to plan. We just have to try to get it up and we're not gonna get the best solution. It won't be the most cost-effective solution. It needs to be fixed. Stretch it out as far as you can, but replace it. Don't be silly and replace things every 2 years. It's great to get a new car every 2 years, right? But it's not, you don't have to.
That's what we learned was that all of a sudden we had a huge increase because we're replacing things all at the same time. We had a huge increase and we're trying to smooth that over years. So we're not getting a big increase and replacing all our computers and all our desktops in 1 year.
Is this list prioritized?
It's not what do you mean prioritized, like on here? It's alphabetical.
What must happen versus what needs to happen.
You mean on the 5-year capital or on the budget?
On the budget itself, so if you had to, really, if you could accept more risk in this area and less in this, this coming budget year, 2023, do you have that? Have you thought about that?
Not really, they're alphabetical. So each thing will affect its own individual things. We'd have to talk, if we're looking to make cuts, we'd have to talk about what it is, what we want to cut, why we want, and what this impact would be. So cutting like the switch upgrades is going to have a significantly different impact than cutting computer replacements, which will have a completely different impact than not going with the cameras at the sheriff's office.
Correct.
So it's not really a priority in that regard, to look at things. One item I did notice on here that I need to pull out, but I'd already submitted it, is the public health camera system replacement. My understanding is they're moving. This was put in there in case they weren't moving to get their old, they have a really old money system that needs to be replaced. But if they're going over to the new building, then that doesn't have to happen. So that's about
Just save some money.
So there you go.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
12,000 there, we're working on it. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Knocking
Supervisor
off the
Campbell,
300,000.
he did also,
Yeah.
well, he also reminded me, just texted, that this year, or last year actually, paid things out of the contingency. So that is also contributing to such an increase for next year.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rock, Peter, pay Paul, and you get burned again.
I have a question.
John?
We're talking about the 300,000 every year. So we went from 33 up to 800. Difference of about 450. Is that the 300 that you want to put every year out of that 450? You're saying it
That's
baked
kind of what
in.
it looks like right now. It's sort of baked in there.
That's a different way to say it, but yeah, you're right on the. It's,
Okay, so actually,
this year's investment is kind of already in the eight. To your point, yes.
so we got the 300, if that was figured in this year, then it'd be up 150.
So another note is the projects for this year are different than last year. So although that particular 2020s went up, you'll see that the 4021s have gone down a couple $100,000 because those were software upgrades that we did last year or this current year, 2022, that we're not doing, like the probation and the code, those were all in there. And this year for 2023, it's more hardware costs, so the costs have shifted a little bit. So I would point that out.
Anything else down in the next budget lines that you may have made aware of?
Oh, the other thing just to bring up is you'll see there's quite a few items for the sheriff. In the past, the sheriff has incorporated a lot of these things into his own budget. He and I have been working very closely to start pulling things into our budget that are technology related, such as patrol cars and all of those type of things. So you'll see more items for the sheriff on here that previously were in the budget. Also DPW, we have a consolidation this year of all of their technology software renewals and such in here that weren't previously. So I just.
So would you tell the sheriff his budget should be down because.
Well, I'd like to say yes, except for some of the things just weren't happening. So that's why we've been, working through the replacement.
Forget that one next
Well,
week.
isn't something?
A little further, do you have a rough idea how much has come out of the sheriff's department and gone into yours? The dollars wise?
Great.
I don't, because I think
I
some
mean, are
of the
we
things,
talking?
187, yeah, 190,000.
So close to $200,000.
like, I'm pretty sure he paid for his own cameras the last time. So now the camera system replacement will be coming out of here. The computers that we're upgrading over there, like all the patrol cars that we did this year, hadn't been replaced since like 2015. They were really old, or maybe it was before that. So those kind of things.
I did notice that part
Like
of
IT, everything is really
He's gonna
old
fill
for
it out.
7 years. DPW.
7 years ago.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's mixture.
right.
Even though we got a grant for the cameras
We covered
anyway.
all that, and we visit later. Anything else, I think overall for IT requests go from 2551 to 3.1. And the lion's share of that is in just what we discovered.
Really it's 2 to 3 from the adopted budget, but you're right, 2.5 for the amended budget. That's a little different.
We've also been shifting some things around between maintenance contracts and subscriptions, so you might see those lines change a bit as well. We do have a couple of new software packages that are subscription models now. And we've been trying to more accurately reflect things that are actually maintenance contracts, meaning something we own, like we own a tangible thing, you pay X amount, now we own like our accounting package. And then we have to pay maintenance on it every year to maintain it, keep the support and keep the updates versus something that's a subscription, meaning you pay X amount per month period. And if you don't pay it, it goes away. So I've been trying to differentiate those as well.
Okay. We also have any questions for Terry? All right, Terry, thank you very much. I'll now to other business for IT. I will now adjourn the IT meeting.
Thank you, Bob.
Keep this straight.
You know, if you have questions.
This is like
IT.
Cameras in the car, that's a body cam. Yeah, that's.
That's the.
I can just keep writing as well. Come on, check the flaws.
Okay, we'll call the government ops meeting to order. First thing is we need to accept the minutes from August 31st, 2022, moved by Daryl, seconded by John. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'll wait to make my comments. I'll do mine during the other or during the. I'll go during the okay.
Okay,
Okay, so Debbie first up.
and page 21 to 22.
Dave's our page keeper for today.
I wrote down notes for myself on the chair.
During the front, I guess. The legislative board's salary was just planned 2.5% increase on salary. Benefit amount is up from last year. It's only whatever it is. Right, 8,400. As far as the expenses go, the travel to Warren, Washington IDA, I reduced that by 200. And I increased the miscellaneous line, I put that 200 in the miscellaneous line. And the mileage for the car expense, carpool, that's usually going to intercounty. I did increase that for the increase in the mileage amount. And I reduced the IDA because there was one person that claimed mileage and then they're no longer there. So we do pay mileage for people attending these organizations. So it's unknown if I'll have somebody else coming on that might. Typically, we haven't had very many. Someone that goes to Soil and Water does claim. So that's why I left a little bit of money in there. But otherwise, it's basically it's $265 more in the expenses than last year. Otherwise, there's no other changes. The miscellaneous is used for the luncheon for the intercounty, and we did not host the intercounty in 2022, so that's why there's no expense on there. And sometimes there might be a conference fee. That's what the miscellaneous line is used for. About all there is there.
Questions for Deb? Okay, moving on to look at the board then.
Okay, clerk of the board is just 2.5% on the salaries, no other changes. Expenses, office supplies, I increased by 300. The contract expense, which is the transcriber, I added $425. And advertising, publicity, which are the legal notices, I put an additional $600 there. So point four expenses increased by $1,375 to account for increased pricing. That's going on. Only change. Anybody have any questions for Deb?
So I'm gonna jump out here on the travel warrant West 98.
Uh-huh.
I would prefer to pull that entire amount out. I think that the IDA should handle its own mileage, if it's numbers want the mileage. I don't think it should be burden on the counties.
That's, we can remove it. There is, I believe by resolution, we pay for people attending advisory or other people you appoint to boards if they claim. Typically, they don't.
I don't mind taking it out, but if you want to, because I think this IDA is expense, IDA should pay for it. Not our board. I don't know.
We have a resolution. I guess address the resolution. You certainly have it in the resolution that you can give your mileage, so having $200 in there.
Ryan, you tell me how people
Yeah, I think that $200 in one trip. Darren, you can get that $200 in one trip. Daryl, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's for the outside individuals, not supervisory. You know, like the one you just appointed to the AC board of trustees could.
Coming out of Cambridge, yeah.
Could, I mean, we have not had very many requests. There was a former supervisor on the IDA that.
Yeah, it's- well, that should be it. Okay. So travel
So these
warrants.
are non-supervisors.
Correct.
All right, anything else for,
Okay. We're done with that. Thanks. What's up? Start, I guess with business or request, presented.
so yes, it's page 2 and page 28 to 29. Revenues.
Yep, go ahead. So my request is to apply for a grant that was presented to us last week by somebody named Simpson. It's $100,000 grant, and it's a CREST grant for capital program, community resiliency, economic sustainability, and technology. To apply for the grant, it has to be applied for by the end of this month. So I would just like approval to go ahead and apply. The use of the grant is for capital projects. I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Win it, John? Moved by John, seconded by Daryl. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Now for the real question, is that in here yet?
No.
No.
That just came out.
Grants.
Right.
Don't ask me to speak.
So you don't need any action for finance on that, right, Deb?
It's fine.
Good,
Right.
thank you.
I'll come back and ask if you'll work.
I got big shoes to fill today.
Okay.
I don't have any revenue, unfortunately. So you want to go on to expenses?
A quarter for both door. Everything.
Sorry. Okay. Regular earnings, I mean, it's just the normal 2.5%. You are going to see a little bit of an increase above that because we did under budget just a tad this year because we had a new employee and hadn't budgeted at the 2022 rate of pay. So you're going to see a little bit more than the 2.5% for this year. Let's see, then we're going to go to overtime, not really looking for overtime, regular overtime this year, $200 for the time and a half. Benefits are what they are, yes. Telephone, were able to decrease just a tad down to $200. For the YAP, which is the DA, county attorney, public defender, those all remain the same, $2,000. It's kept at $200. Office supplies, of course, with the expenses, everything's going up just a little bit, asked for $300 more there. Contract expenses. One change I have under the contract expenses is the second to the last one. The OPEB valuation actuarial services, that we had budgeted $6,000. It actually came in at $4,150. I'd like to label that as revenue. No?
That's creative accounting right
Okay.
there. You're sitting too close to Al.
Thank you, Darrell.
Dues and subscriptions, that's just County Administrator Association and also the State Association for Purchasers, Purchasing. Education, training, staff development, I'm able to decrease a little bit for 2023, but still would like to be able to have some training available to staff, using Skill Path and or New World training that comes up. That's about it. I do have a travel plan for 2023, which is why you'll see the mileage carpool go up just a little bit as well. I would like to attend the NISAC conference in the fall. I don't know where it is. I believe it's probably pretty local. So not looking for much in the way of that, but we'll see other travel, other $1,000 that I had asked for.
Yeah, Melissa, how many in your department are 40 hours? How many are 35?
I have 2 40-hour employees, and then I have 2 salary employees, including myself.
So there is no 35, it's just why do you, overtime, straight time, where would you ever use that on a 40-hour employee?
Yeah, we wouldn't for the 1.0, just the 1.5 times. That would be used for the employees that are 40 hours if they had to work overtime.
Right, yeah.
I don't really anticipate.
Any questions for Melissa?
Oh, and I do not have any staffing requests for 2023. Want to use that as revenue as well.
Less of an increase is not a decrease.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Reduction can go to, additions can't.
Okay. You all set, Melissa?
That's it.
Okay, we're gaining time left and right here. You're up, Roger.
You just say that out loud.
Go back down here.
County attorney is 4,
County attorney.
34.
So my budget's a little wonky this year, so we'll get the request and not the actual, because I'm down 2 people. And one of those 2 people I'm down for most the entire year. So those numbers going through. Really strange. I do have a personnel request. You recall, a year or 2 ago, we took the safety officer, we had senior safety officer and safety officer, brought in the new title of safety coordinator, hoping that we can use that position to leverage more time in the field to fill. As it turned out, we need more time in the field, not just fill but for somebody else. So for next year, I'm going to be asking you to move that coordinator out, put the title of safety officer back in. That would be salaried versus that person is hourly. Coordinating hourly. So that's what I'd go back over. Other than that, law books are going through the roof. Books are now, I think some of the books are about $200 a copy. So expensive, but they are. Westlaw is always going to go up. The consultant line, as you can see, is a lot more than you gave us every year. I have that discussion with you about giving you what you want. This year I paid a couple of Melissa's bills, I think, and a couple of sheriff's outside council bills, as well as some for us where we've had conflicts. Haven't been able to do it. So again, that number could be $20 million and it could be $3.50. I didn't put in the 7,500. It started it when I first got here, by the way, it started at 50. And it's gradually made its way down to 7,500. And mostly because we underspent it, but this is gonna be the year that we don't.
So Roger, going back to your revenue,
Yep,
you had revenue,
the safety officer revenue chargeback that comes from,
so that went down by, is your change for salaries not gonna affect that?
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's Sue's magic. Sue doesn't charge back. That's the only revenue I have coming in, is that safety officer charge back.
Covered?
And that number will fluctuate depending on the decisions you make on his staffing request.
Right, because that's not.
Whatever
the changes in-
the number is what the chargeback will be. So
Right, and that number's not in there. There is, some extra travel money for, conferences for Phil to go to, and also, move money around to get Karen in places, but we try to increase down a little bit, so you can actually see that. Those conferences that Karen goes to, a lot of them, she's actually comps for, because they wanted to come and present. So she gets her expenses paid for coming to present, but there's some other ones that she should go to. Like to go to, that she's not, you have to pay for. They are never held in places like Saratoga, they're always held in places like Baltimore. So, other than that, the only travel we have, it's not for training, it's the County Attorneys Association, which has one conference, which costs the county nothing, except for dues, which are going up 10% this year. But, those are used for comp, and our attorneys pay for their own CLE costs. So, we'll end up with the same number of people we started with, just I'm asking for a 2-grade increase on that safety officer.
Any other questions for Roger? We're ahead of schedule. Thanks, Roger.
Word.
Oh, we'll jump on Stephanie.
She's
Other
not-
Lord,
She's not supposed to be the 11th.
Chadwick's not available,
Okay.
so we've got Stephanie. Yep, Stephanie's next.
Then we are really ahead of schedule.
Cheryl, over there, if you want, Stephanie. We'll let you into the inner circle.
So county clerk revenues on page 4, expenses 32 and 33. What were the numbers?
4, 32, and 33.
Comment, questions?
can I just ask a question before we start?
Yep.
We're not being here today, are you gonna have to appear later? I have a couple, at least one question. Will she be appearing before the board later, but you know?
Please ask for another meeting.
Okay.
One has not been scheduled. I did ask. Rescheduled.
Thank you.
You have a question?
So you're moving out according to that. Okay, Stephanie, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I have adjusted some of my numbers accordingly. I'm only asking for an increase in one of my lines, and that's the lease equipment line. I have asked for a $12,000 increase in there. With that being said, what that line is our computer system that holds all our in-house court records, our deeds, mortgages. We have from 1964 forward on the computer now. What we're looking to do is to start the back scanning on that. Unfortunately, I can't use the grant money that I get to do that. It's also the stuff that's put online so that abstractors as well as individuals can pull it offline. We do have quite a revenue that comes in from that. Last year, we brought in $94,274.60 with the online. This year already, we are at $60,424. So if you look at that line, you have approved $70,000 for that, so we're more than even covering that cost with additional costs. It will be beneficial to our archival storage of those records as well as to the online service for individuals to do research and stuff on it.
Anybody have any other questions?
Can I go back to revenues for a second?
Sure.
Your adopted budget for last year was 1.640. And you were putting the same request in for this year,
Yes,
so you don't anticipate any increases?
I do not. The mortgage sales have started slowing down. That's what was carrying us up before. And they have slowed down tremendously. We're still getting some good ones, but not enough right now that I would be comfortable to say, hey, let's say we're gonna do more of that, because nobody knows what's happening with this mortgage tax rate creeping up slowly.
So what's the effect on your DMV fees?
DMV, so our DMV fees are down a bit. We are not getting the cars like they anticipated last year that the fleets would come in. What the dealerships are doing now is they're selling the cars before they get delivered. So there's not an overabundance of cars for people just to go in and buy, like there normally is. Supposedly they keep reassuring us that we're almost there, but we check regularly when they drop off the paperwork. But they haven't gotten over that hump yet of the extra cars.
So whenever they come in, we'll get them next.
Yeah.
In our fees.
In our fees.
Thank you.
We are also, the state has, I want to say it started in June. I think I discussed it in May. They were starting to send the little pink envelopes everybody gets in the mail that used to say Utica. Registrations and license renewals now have the Fort Edward address. We have, they give me a monthly notice of how many they are sending out, so we're prepared in case we get hit with them, which is what we want to do. We are up to over 1,000 of those little envelopes being sent out to Fort Edward a month. And they've been sending them at least twice a month. So we are seeing an influx in our little pink envelopes coming in. They're using the Dropbox, they're coming in to do them, and they're also mailing.
So refresh my memory, coming here, we get a bigger share than.
Yes, we get 12.7.
It was 7%.
Oh, no, if the state, when it went to Utica, after the first $485,000 that they received, we would get 2.7%.
Also getting a better increase from what
Yes,
high school. They did something for us this year, beneficial.
Remember, finance, I reported out that we're $260,000 down the same time last year, so I convinced Stephanie of being realistic and not, putting artificial revenue in that you may or may not get. So I thank you for taking a conservative
Yeah,
approach.
I've been watching the numbers every month as I'm putting them in the system. I'm not comfortable. I'm praying we break even this year.
I love that the 2 point, I hope the 1.2 is wrong, but I think I commend you on being realistic and knowing that we're trying to get out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if something changes with the cars and the DMV numbers, I will definitely bring it to committee. But I'm not, because they keep telling us it's gonna happen, and it hasn't happened.
I'll take on budgeted revenue all day, so.
I remember we said that conversation, for the budget too high based on that. That's fine. We're getting an increase we didn't expect
Yes,
from the state.
and I actually will be talking to Cassie about something else after I speak to Roger about something else that we may be able to do to boost the revenue, but I'm not going to burst any bubbles yet. Stay tuned. I'm trying to find
It's a
it where I
teaser, so you
can.
come back next month.
Are there any personal requests that you are gonna make this year?
In,
You get a gold star.
in my travel is my normal, I have two. We actually reduced one meeting. So we only traveled to 2 meetings instead of 3 for the association. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
You want the historian too?
Sure, let's do historian.
Hers isn't changing at all. Hopefully more revenue, because for some reason people really want to know about their ancestors and their genealogy.
That seems.
No changes there.
And more revenue.
And more revenue.
That was a key part.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a
It
good
was
day.
painless this year, wasn't it?
We're working on it.
Just keep right on.
Run
vote for
before they
that
change
door.
their mind. Albert, I know we're ahead of time. Are you
Are you
ready?
prepared?
Compared to them gonna be. I'm only gonna hit on the highlights unless you have specific questions, so.
And it's, hold on, it's 2 and 3 were revenue and 29.30 for expenses. Thank you.
As far as the revenues go, I did bump up the treasurer fees line because I was looking at some of the actuals. And I've been receiving more than I've been budgeting, so I can't good conscious not move that number. So I did bump up the treasurer's fees and I lost, so for 2 years, for 21 and 22, we got an additional $10,000 for the planning board for administering their COVID relief revolving world loan fund. So I had to take that 10,000 out. The good news is I got about 3,900 hours by taking over a new school. So I'm now doing 3 schools. I'm doing Argyle, Fort Anne, and Fort Edward. So I was able to replace some of that revenue with another school. So the net's down a little bit, but I was able to replace some of the 10 with what I hope is going to be a recurring. So far, collections have been fairly good. I haven't yet got negative feedback, so I'm hoping it stays that way. I know the first year that we did 40N, there was some adjustments to people's habits and stuff, but it seems to now be pretty smooth. The Argyle people have been great this year so far, so I can't see a reason.
That's about 50 a parcel.
About 50 a parcel, yep. We are unfortunately at the point that I'm gonna say I'm probably at critical mass. Any more schools knocking on my door, it's gonna result in a personnel change. I think I've found my tipping point. The first 2 schools were no impact. The third school has had an impact, but it's doable. So I think I'm at my critical mass as far as what we can take on without more manpower. I wouldn't turn the school away, but it would need to be looked at if there was a benefit to the county. That it would require more personnel.
Would charge more.
I would have to in order to recover the costs. So right now, the 3 schools are paying me money for the staff I already had. So for money we would have paid anyway, we're getting some revenue. If that was the change, I would definitely have to come back and have a different conversation with not only you, but the schools. I still might be cheaper than hiring their own person, but it would not be $1.50 person. That's really it on the revenue side. The other services are services we provide to the regional planning board. So there is 10,000 that stays in the budget for us doing the accounting for. So that's still in. We only lost the 10,000. That was the extra. Any questions on the revenue? Okay, shoot.
Your overtime. Looks like we're still about twice what any of your actuals ever been. Is that reflecting schools? Is that reflecting?
No, what my fear is that we're gonna be doing 2 years of enforcement this year, 2 years of enforcement next year. I don't know if I'm gonna use it, but I want it to be realistic that I might not be able to do everything within normal business hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
It would in theory, go back down to 24. I just wanted to be prepared for another unexpected usage next year. David?
so Al, looking at your regular earnings,
Yes, sir.
it's 41,462. That's a lot more than 2.5% increase.
So there was a mistake in my 22 budget due to the staffing change. My budget wasn't changed even though my staffing was changed. So it looks like more than the 2.5% because my 2022 is incorrect.
But back to Bob's point about the department request for overtime 102 is that in 2022, you asked for 328 in overtime. Now you asked for 200. Like you just said it was an increase. In the overtime. $32 and 33 is.
That might be. Oh,
Yeah.
29.
No, you're right. I'm going to try to make it work.
Okay.
I
I
had
just
thought
want
about,
to make sure you didn't make a mistake in that.
well, I might have, but I'm not going to ask you to deal with it now. We'll wait and see if we need it.
Okay.
Al, just a question about I know you've had a significant number of COVIDs involved within the same time in your department.
Thanks for noticing.
Has that been driving up any of your overtime costs and stuff done quarantine now for the 5 to 7 days?
No, I haven't utilized any overtime yet, Chairman, but what's happening is there is a little bit delay. So I try to have all the mail done by the close of business. Some of the mail is rolling into the next business day. So some of the stuff that would have been processed same day is getting processed the next day. But I haven't tapped into the overtime yet. As far as my travel plan, I have, my deputy goes every year to New World training. It's usually out of state. That was a little bit pricier than most. It's not astronomical, but it's more than, going to Albany. Myself, I do schedule for the spring and fall NISAC and the accounting school in Syracuse. Probably the most beneficial training I go to is that one in Syracuse for the week. That accounting finance school is significantly worthwhile training in my opinion. So that's what's in my education and staff development line. I do have a couple of personnel requests, and I didn't bring them up, having looked at the initial numbers, but I'm going to bring them up, and you can do with them what you will. They're not significant, but they're changes. So the first one, if you remember last year, I had a retirement that I did not fill the position after the person left. And I wanted to kind of take a look and see what that would look like and how that would flow. What I'm looking to do, I don't want to put that position back in. I do want to take one of my bookkeepers and move them from 35 to 40 hours. So they're, like I said, with this third school, I've kind of reached my critical mass. And I don't want to entertain another body, but I think another 5 hours a week would gain me a lot. I did take a position out last year, and after a year's worth of working through it, I think that I'd like to at least get that 5 hours added back in. So one of my requests is to move one bookkeeper from 35 to 40 hours. If anybody's interested, I have a little snapshot of where we were. The treasurer's office in 2008 had 13 employees, 13 full-time employees. And in 2015, I dropped down to 10, and I currently have 8.5. So every year I look at what we can do. We thankfully, Terry's IT budget goes up considerably, but I'm one of the departments that probably benefits very directly from her investment in technology. So our ability to go from 13 to 8.5 is almost directly related to the efficiencies that you can build in through technology. So I just, I have a summary here if the board ever wanted to see how the staffing has been reduced in my office over the time. So that extra 5 hours is one of the things I'm looking for. This year we changed, for 2022, we changed two of the titles to payroll clerk. And what I've done is I've asked Danielle to look at those based on other grade 13 duties. I think they may be misclassified in their grade. So I've asked her to consider looking at a 1 grade bump for them. She of course would have to agree that I'm right. I'm not a personnel officer and I don't play one on TV. But looking at my duty statement of my employees versus other 13 duty statements, I've asked Danielle to take a look at those to make sure that they're properly coded. If she says they're properly coded at 13, I'm fine with that. My gut tells me there may be one grade low. But Danielle will be able to report back to you what she believes based on the duty statement. But that is in an extra request that's not in the budget. Should she deem that to be appropriate, that would be an additional grade for 2 people. And the last thing I have is in a new position, even though our process makes it look like one. So the staffing pattern that I have, if you wanted to look at it, shows I originally had 5 bookkeepers. In my office, you don't start as a bookkeeper, you start as an accountant clerk, and then you work your way up, senior accountant clerk, bookkeeper. So there's a progression, promotional progression. But under our current structure, every time somebody goes to that next step, it's a staffing pattern change. So I do have somebody who would be eligible to go to the next step next year. And I'm told that in order to make that happen, I have to bring that to you now. So I have a senior accountant clerk that would be eligible July 1st to go to the next step, which would be bookkeeper. So that's in my, it looks like a new position request for my office, but it's really a promotional request. And I'm told that I have to bring that at budget time. So you'll see that in that budget packet that's lingering out there as an extra request, even though it's technically what I used to call a track position. You know, that likes the family plan. Kidding. But it's a little different. It looks like a staffing pattern change, but it's really a promotion. And
in your department, you said there's 8.5 employees.
yes, sir.
How many are salary, how many are 40 hour, how many are 35?
On one of the sheets. So currently I have 2 that are salary exempt, myself and my deputy. I do have the principal account clerk, the 2 payroll clerks and a bookkeeper that are at 40. And then I have, I have a principal and the 2 payroll clerks at 40. My bookkeepers, the 2 bookkeepers are both at 35. One of them is, I'm looking to move the 40. And then my senior account clerk and part-time, my senior account clerk is also 35, and my part-timer is a 20 to 25, depending on.
I'll take one of those out.
Sure. So like, I kind of,
They want some down.
interestingly enough, Michelle, I can see a world where 40 hours would be appropriate across the board. However, when I talk to my staff, some of them are interested in 40 hours. And since I hired them and interviewed them at 35, I'm not of the mind to force them into 40. But if a 35-hour employee leaves, I would definitely look at whether or not the 40 would be appropriate at that time. I'm always looking at staffing. Usually when I look at staffing, somebody's getting cut. I don't normally add. So this is one of the first times I'm coming to you with an ad. Yeah, and what I'm finding is in the summertime, it's even harder when, because everybody wants time off in the summer. The longer, I have a blessing and a curse. My people have been with me a long time. But in the county, the longer you're here, the more benefit time. So in order to keep minimum staffing in my office, that extra 5 hours would buy me a lot. Between collecting for a town, collecting for 3 schools, time off in the summer, it buys me a lot of coverage. Right now, I find myself, I am the backup sometimes. That's maybe not appropriate.
Okay, maybe.
So for the 2020, so the next round of contracts, yes, I could approach the schools in the town for an increase in the revenue. These contracts that I'm in right now have already been signed, so it will be the next round of contracts. But yes, that would be something to consider. So strongly consider.
I think that this year is probably been unusual for you in that with the auctions and the recovery. Do
That would be an
Yeah.
understatement, thank you.
beyond what is a normal kind of events. And so I don't see that any of that reflected in here, but I know that the department probably is now trying to deal with some of the auctions.
So there'll be 2 years this year, 2 years next year. But there was 3 certified mailings this year when there's normally 1. So, yeah, it's a little bit more, but
It's one auction, multiple years.
it's 1 auction, multiple years.
So it's a different process.
And I'm pleased to report that I think we're down to 134, or 129 as of this morning. So that makes me a little bit better than where we were, because we were at 77 and 104 last time I talked to you guys. So as of this morning, it was down to 129. And when the signs, my courtesy letter goes out, we'll see that number drop again, hopefully. We do have a tentative court date of October 6th with the judge. If everything goes well and it's signed, we'd be looking at the first 2 weeks in November for.
So that will leave how many more years do we have to catch up on?
So that'll leave 20 and 21s. There's only 1 year, after this, there will be 1 behind year in the current.
And when were you thinking about doing the 2021?
So there'll be a conversation with the board, whether you want me to have 2 next year or run them both in October. You could in theory run a spring auction for the 20s and a fall auction for the 21s, or you could do the same thing we're doing this year, and run them both through October.
Is there additional cost? How much is the cost savings if you do it in 1 auction versus 2?
So the cost is all just staff time. There's no real outlay because that's all Briar's premium paid at the auction.
I was talking to a county that did it twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. They got a
It's
lot.
it's additional staff time to run too, but it's staff time that you would have paid anyway, not additional staff.
Yeah,
Just to let you know, all the department heads are bringing all their upgrades and personnel requests to each individual finance meeting that they're in. And then, so they'll be all next week. The following week, they'll be compiled, and then you'll get everything lined up. Sue will get everything costed out. And the first week in October, you'll get emailed the grand total of all the requests and the grand total of all the costs. And you'll have it a week before the next personnel / finance set meeting. So you haven't got to keep track of all this now. It's gonna come, but there may be an adjustment right now where somebody may convince you to make a change in what you're looking for. So there's no sense doing it until we get through all these budget workshops.
Right, no action today, just information.
Correct.
And one thing that's not specific to my department that I wanted to pass around, I'm a visual guy and I developed a 1-sheeter that I use. And if any of you have a use for it, I wanted to pass it around. It takes it's a 3-box, 1-sheeter. Top box is the 2022 budget. The second box is the 2023 request, and then the third box is the variance. So you can see budget to budget what the variances are.
sorry, Daryl.
Would give us a hard time.
So, yeah, don't really fall out of your chair at this point, because that's, but it's hard when you get the budget as a book. It's hard to really grasp what the bundle looks like. So this is what I do for myself every year, and I thought that might be a benefit to the board to kind of see it as a 1-sheeter, budget to budget, what the changes look like.
But this 2023 department requested budget middle box does not include any upgrades or any new positions.
No, that is completely a summary of the budget you have in front of you that does not include any of the staffing changes. That's just what you have in front of you.
So while we were talking about the auction, do you have any budgetary figures that we can look at or consider that may come in this year for this year's auction and next year's auction?
My concern is because our auction normally only has 3 years delinquent, and this year we'll have 5 years delinquent. I'm not assured that we'll even make our lien, let alone make a surplus. I'm not saying that we won't, but I'm a little too conservative to budget for a surplus when I know there's 2 extra years of.
Hate that number already.
But we haven't sent anything to auction yet. Just because you paid your taxes, we didn't make any more money.
What'd you budget for this year for auction revenue, for 2022?
I think that's what Brian normally does. I can see what's in it.
I just wonder if it was zero because we knew we didn't think it was gonna be.
So Mr. Hepp convinced the board a couple years ago to take it out. I don't think there's any
Revenue number.
revenue number.
So,
He had zero. It's
And was
been
it-
zero for at least 3 years.
and zero for next year. And you,
Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have a surplus, but it's gonna be harder to find.
no, revenue is zero or surplus is zero.
Both. We haven't had an auction since 2019, so I don't have 2021 and 22 have zeros in them.
So
If we didn't budget any revenue, then
We didn't budget any.
then revenue and surplus be the same thing. So you're saying is for whatever you make on the auction in November,
If we make a surplus over our lien, that would be unbudgeted revenue. My concern is that the lien now is 2 years bigger and surplus will be harder to achieve
because the lien is so much bigger.
because the lien is so much bigger.
So all we budgeted was the delta. We never budgeted the two numbers.
Right, so you don't budget the sale amount, you budget the amount over the lien.
Gotcha.
And for 3 years, that number has been
Gotcha.
budgeted and actual as zero.
Gotcha.
So just to get back to the auction, when would you consider coming and recommending when you want a spring auction and fall auction or whatever? You have plenty of preparation time, you don't know if you do it spring versus fall. More lead time you have, better off it was.
I was kind of hoping to get through this one first and then plan the next one or two. The one thing that I will let the board know while we're on option discussion real quick, because of the way that the calendar is looking to tentatively fall, we haven't set anything. This is a tentative schedule. If the tentative schedule runs the online auction from November 1st to November 15th, I'll miss the November finance. So what I'll be looking for at finance is permission to go directly to the full board and have Supervisor Campbell present the auction results, because you all have to accept the auction results. And to wait till December wouldn't be my recommendation. So I'll be looking for, the board to consider letting Mr. Campbell send it directly to the floor, because I'll miss the finance before the board meeting for the auction acceptance.
So potentially we have a huge number coming in from the auction. We could potentially adjust our next year's budget.
So yes, the morning that you'll have the budget vote, in theory, you'll also have the auction results. So there would be some room to move if things went differently than suspected.
You have prints out?
I think so.
That was no.
I'm sure you'll hear from me more today, but that's all I have specific.
Okay, any other questions for Al? Okay,
Thanks, Al.
you're up, Matt.
Oh, sign behind me.
Yeah, he was trying to keep you in mind. You got your mouth huge, so straighten out.
Oh, you can do that anyway.
I know, but I was gonna blame it on that.
Building grounds is 6.
Or you want the building ground the parks first?
Whichever you want, dealer's choice.
Oh, we'll go with parks.
It's the 31.
17 and 78.
Page 17 starts the revenue for. Really not much changes in either of them. The revenues based on the revenues for summer for the pavilions. That's based on trend. And we can go village on page 79 for. budget. The only thing you'll see different, there is obviously a raise. Cost, and that's just the cost. It's going up. The budget is for 57 days a year for so many positions. We don't often get our budgeted amount based on how many hours we need, and we've been short help, so we never hit it. What you do notice is the regular earnings are zero. We budget in part-time. That's what they're considered as seasonal, but they allocate to the regular earnings. So that's why you see zero of it. The only other thing you see is, the equipment is 1,000, which I've asked for every year. That's like buoys and ropes and safety equipment for like their type stuff. There's 500 in the education, training, and staff development. And that's possible, like their education costs. Every year's a little different. We try to use the program downstairs as much as possible, but when we're short staffed, we have had to do and have a class ourselves. So from that, repair and maintenance for 1,000, that's the same as usual. One year you might see it high, one year low. Well pump goes bad. It'll be, expensive year. If nothing really breaks, then we're no questions there. I'll move on to the water company.
Why the increase in electricity? So
Because of the cost of electricity, it's 2.6.
We just approved that last contract.
But I see Brian's already
You're gonna,
changed it.
you're gonna see that across this whole budget, Supervisor.
Yeah,
Almost 3.5 times.
I think the 2.7 is a multiplier. Yeah, so. Yeah, so they are actual changes.
So with that, when you brought that question up, is there anything that we're doing to implement next year to try to reduce our usage?
Well, when we get the buildings,
Okay.
it'll definitely be, and you're gonna hear a lot about it in government house. Yes, there is. And there's definitely projects going on that we've already been involved in, energy savings projects right along, but they probably will bring. You're gonna get me talk about it much more because it's worth it. But at the parks, short of just changing bulbs to LEDs, you still have a pump, the parks are gonna be less of them.
Right. Your big thing has to be right.
So,
Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, and Matt, I think you were explaining it, but I didn't understand it, didn't hear you. On the earnings, you had budgeted 54,000 for part-time, but it says that you actually had 42,000 for full-time.
yeah,
And you total the two of them together as the cost?
no,
I just was wondering.
we don't total them together. It's a,
Supervisor, you might remember when you were budget officer, there's a disconnect between the budget and the payroll system. We have this budget line for part-timers, but there's not a way to get the payroll system to charge them correctly. So I think Supervisor Campbell at some point this year may be talking to the board about whether we've outlived the usefulness of that part-time line. If there's no way for payroll in the budget to match up those part-time hours. There's a manual way, and if you tell me that that's your desire, we'll make that happen, but it's an extremely manual way to do. So Supervisor Campbell will be talking to you about that later in this budget process.
our direction is just to put the number in part-time, but when we allocate it, it just comes out in the full-time.
So year to date, which is what we're on, right? How much what's the 54,700 be? And what was the 43,500 be?
So 54,446 is what we budgeted last year. Currently, we've used 43,503, and I would have to check when this was printed off. I think there's one more payroll that comes out of that, so we're not gonna hit the budgeted number, but it'll be up closer. Yeah, well, this year, at first we were, but what happened is we had to use a bunch of overtime, to keep the parks open. And then we were able to staff in about June, and we staffed it up. So it has a lot to do with weather. Last year, rained all summer, so you need less staff. You close early when it's pouring. The summer was hot and high. Parks got used heavily, needed staff.
Especially on the weekends, there wasn't much rain.
Yeah, we have record numbers
this year. I don't have them in front of me now, but record numbers at both parts of people, so. And they've been trending up over time. It's a less expensive option to take kids and families and do something.
You know, it had a lot to do with that, as opposed to parks, you know, so people are reading, I forgot about it.
100% outside activities. So
And there's one more payroll after this posted.
one more payroll after this.
44,363 is. That's probably that might be your final.
I think we have.
That's payroll.
I think we might have a salary, our park manager salary, which is actually in Lauderdale. Okay, I think we have some more. So,
It'll be under budget. It's good.
which is common, because what we do is we budget for a certain amount of staff, because throughout the summer, we can't come back to you and ask for backfills.
Right.
So if somebody goes back to school, you know, and we don't have the time to do that in lifeguard, so we budget for a certain amount of, you know, hours and stuff.
So in that situation.
We have a
you
formula.
basically.
That's right, I think it's like 10 positions at 57 days, and we might fill 8. I may fill 10 if we can, and tell the, you know, manager, okay, this is what we have to do. We can't have them all full-time, pick full-time ones and some part-time. And we just try to do that because lifeguards have been so hard to find that if we can keep somebody, even like a high school kid working part-time for 15 hours a week, there's a good chance next year that he'll come back. Or he or she might.
What's the law now? The age is 15.
15. Yeah.
And lifeguards clocking at 45, 50 hours.
Yeah, first time ever I've had lifeguards at the beginning of this year, like clock 15 hours overtime a week. I've never, and high school kids don't do that.
Right.
They're lucky to get them for 40. I mean, we had a couple girls up in Hewlett that took the bull by the horns and kept that park open,
For them.
you know, so it was.
Thank you.
Right.
Hopefully the bank.
All right. That's probably for parks. Is there anything else that sticks out? The only thing you might see.
And for Lauderdale, are you gonna need to give any kind of consideration in case you need to get like a construction trailer or something to get your staff out of that?
For Lauderdale?
Yeah.
I haven't. That's not it.
Because that cabin's still
Yeah,
a problem,
is.
right?
so I think we talked about this in government house, our contract is with the state is coming up soon and, you know, hope to do some leverage, you know, it's a building, so.
Another one of your concerns was your staff is in that cabin.
It is, I'm hoping to,
Bill's not happy with that cabin.
no, he isn't, but we don't have, like,
Not anywhere else to go, I'm just saying, we're pretty bad.
Right, I just didn't know if you've given consideration.
I haven't, and if I need to, I'm looking at that discussion. I hope not. I changed some of the routines up so they were less time in there, you know, maybe they dropped their stuff off. Less time there and more time.
Dan?
Yes, we're on Lake Lauderdale, correct?
Sure.
Now, the lawnmower that you're gonna request, I'm more questioning is the part-time employee take care of the lawn mowing there, or do you have to send them in?
It's a combined,
Pardon me?
it's a combined, workforce right now. Like, we do go down there sometimes, but if he has enough staff, usually they do that. But
Okay,
But in some years, they don't have enough staff and we have to take care of it. So we've always had a lawnmower for there. It's just 30 years old, but we spend more time going down and fixing the lawnmower, you know, to get it worked and it's worth it. This is a walk behind that they could use or we could use. So unfortunately, this year we did have to go down to Lauderdale quite a bit. We take our lawnmower so they're not, you know, somebody else isn't mowing in the other locations that we need when we're down there. And it's a big park, so it takes, you know, a couple guys a full day or two, you know, depends on the time of year.
Yeah, it's.
so the 6,500, that's a walk behind?
That's a whole commercial walk. Not like it's not like a little push mower, it's a hydrostatic walk behind, you know.
polls.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Yep. Page 6 is revenues for building and grounds. 39 to 41 is the
So look, on revenue, I'll start with revenue. That community development income you'll see, that's a revenue from fleet. That was, it's a payment for an HVAC. It's something that came from before me, and either the payment ran out, you know, it was either paid back or there's an error somewhere. But we're in the process, but we've been in the process for a month since I was working on this budget, trying to track down exactly what it was. There doesn't seem to be much of a written contract. We're trying to find what contract it would have been part of. My bet is that it was when we installed the control system up there.
I'll see if I can find it. I had it
Just my bet.
when I was on the
You
board, I
had
had a contract, I might have a copy. When I was chairman of the
So
league.
I put it in for 7,500, as you can see. We haven't got anything this year, but if it goes back and it's just something that they haven't been paying us, that they're supposed to be paying us. You know.
There was an end to it though.
There was an end to it, so it might be something that just.
It was so much here over so many years to replace it.
Sure, it might just disappear. Rental property, I don't see that anymore. That was a one-time rental from OC's when we bought the coin. Cooperative extension is out in the annex. I did budget for that, not knowing how long they would be in there before if we move nurses and we close the building down. That's a different discussion, but I did leave that alone for this year.
Because you think it'll be pretty close to a year.
Yeah, I'm hoping less than that. I mean, optimistic. And nothing says that if they move out that we don't find a spot and they pay for it again, you know. And it comes in the revenue. So, I don't know. We don't have those answers yet, so it is something we're working on. Rather than guessing, we're going to leave it at what it is now. Public health, that's a Mylar report. That's basically what my guys do. And they get reimbursed by the state for certain stuff. It goes up and down. If we have a big remodel form or something, that might be this year, next year, but I don't suspect it's going to be more this year. Until we move them, and then that number's going to. When we go to move them over there, that number will go probably pretty high. We've got quite a bit of revenue, but it's just really just paying back my budgeted times, which I'm almost 100% this fiscal year. So, rental property WIC, same thing. Just a report we do every year how much we do for them maintenance wise. And then the state aid court facilities, I did bump up 20,000 this year for revenue because I do know the projects have been identified labor intensive. So we bump that up. The other thing is we still do certain things I negotiated with the courts. COVID, there's certain things we do for that's above and beyond our contract. And the deal is that we bill them overtime right for that. Under the theory that if they're not working over in my building and they're working over there, I still need to get the stuff done here, so it's got to come from somewhere. That is dropping off. First, so. That's it for revenue. Sure.
Matt, a DSS, is that you don't charge back to them?
We don't charge back to DSS. So we don't charge back.
Supervisor, we do an indirect cost report every year where we capture some of the department's time and square footage and all that kinds of stuff. So there is a number that comes back to the county. It's not directly paid to Matt, but social services does take the indirect cost report that we give as a countywide report. And they're able to send that to their state agencies. So it does come back, but it's a more global look at the time and space and things.
Thank you for clarifying.
Which I do, like,
Yeah, he doesn't want to work.
Yeah, we do work on the report, but it's not.
So he doesn't see the money directly, but he's
Works
part
for
of the
nothing.
bigger.
He works for nothing over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. For minutes. So we go on to regular earnings. That's just a basic, nothing too much. I think due to the fact we're gonna have some retirements. After 30 years, we'll be replaced with guys with not so much. Part-time earnings, that's our summer help. We budget them for 80 days and we use them as a part-time employee now. A lot of times our high school students, they come back for snowstorms, on vacations, it's good help. So 3 of them at 80 days is how we get that number. OT, I did ask for 60,000 this year. And that's basically just the cost of my help going up after last year's raises and stuff. We are using our overtime budget pretty good. Right now it says, actual amount 26,700, but what you gotta remember is the fall starts snowing, the number starts going, we'll catch up real quick. That's based on weather. Buyouts incentive, there's 2 retirements expected this year. Both with quite a bit of serve time. Down here. So the next, we'll go on to point 2, it's the office equipment. Well, you see 00, and last year we transferred 15,000 in to that line because that's what we're buying. Desk, chairs, and, office furniture for different departments. So all the department requests, they might come to you, but sometimes they don't, and they end up in my budget. So I transferred 15 into that line last year.
Avoid the use chair, just.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you're gonna do it today, but
So-
Dave's not here.
So, what this is, like lots of times, even if it's money that they got, I have to have something in my budget to be able to spend it, even if it's reimbursed. So office furniture, sure. I got you. Now.
Well, that can open another can of worms.
Yeah, right.
We don't know how much those desks are.
Demobilization.
So this year, I put in 20 for the same stuff. And it's really tracking it out of the right line is a lot of what it is. So we know that that's what it is and not coming out of my equipment.
So basically, look at this, your real increase is coming in electricity and natural gas.
That's what I guess.
$365,000 in electricity and $50,000 in outside services, or 115 of your $500,000 increase. So
I did 20% on my contract expenses and repair and maintenance on both of those 2 lines. So that's the cost of materials. That's
So outside services are your contracts.
but not, well, I have maintenance contracts and then I have contract expenses. I contract these guys to take out those back steps that are unsafe. That's an outside contractor service. So I've hired somebody to do work here, and that's contracted service. Then I have the contract line, this is every year. And then I have a contract line, and that's a maintenance contract. That's Eastern is paid this much per year to take care of our boilers.
Right, but on your outside services, are you gonna employ 20% more work getting done from them, or you're gonna figure 20% more costly to do the same amount of
It's gonna
work?
cost us 20% more to get the same amount of work.
And you increase the electrical, which is the bulk of your increase,
Yes,
just a factor of
2.5.
based upon the mega numbers?
Yes. I didn't increase them, Brian changed those numbers. So Brian changed them, we looked at our actuals, we looked at what I've asked for, we looked at our projected for this year. And he did, I think it's 2.7 is the number.
How can we have an actual amount of 0 for this year?
Because in our budget line, they're tracked individually and they don't roll up into the line. So if you looked at the municipal building, it might be 55,000 right now, Burgoyne might be 12. Annex is this, so our location, so there's a breakdown by location, so I can bill back. I gotta have sporting, like if I'm gonna bill back
you know, this department for electricity, I gotta have the back proof that this is how much it was.
But so the
It
budget
just
number is
doesn't roll.
irrelevant if we don't have the actual number to track year to year.
So
That's insane.
I'm trying to work with New World.
I have that.
For whatever reason, Mr. Hicks, this account has children. The actual amounts from the children aren't rolling up into the budget line. We're working with New World, but I'm not gaining much headway right now.
So
The other alternative that I don't want to do is give up, and you would have to then start budgeting each of the children. And I don't think you want to do that.
No.
So I'm working diligently with New World, trying to find an answer, but for other reports in the system, they're rolling up. So when you do a budget performance report, they're rolling up. This is the only place those children are not rolling up into the budget line.
So who can tell me what the real children were for last year, Matt? Or you?
I can. Or you can. Anybody, I can go ahead and Norwell and get that number. It just isn't printing out on this particular report.
But we're basing next year's number on this year's arbitrary number, which is based upon the previous year's arbitrary number. Wouldn't it be good to base next year's number
No,
on the
the
actual?
actuals, I have actuals.
They have actual.
No,
You're not, you don't.
you don't. Right, so you're asking me to approve this based upon
Or you have.
data that none of us have, so it'd be interesting to know if the actual was anywhere near 225 for this year.
Yes. Yes. That's, it is.
Or
And it
prorated
did,
so far.
and it's actually gonna be very close or over because the contract is still in this year's time. So the expense for those last 2 months is gonna go up, which is gonna get us, I would say, almost over.
But we can get that
I can
verified,
get that
There
number
were
verified.
171 last year was his actual.
which is so for last year,
And he's
for
already-
2021
He's at 99 already this year.
through 8 months.
So,
Probably so.
7.
So
because
it'd be closer to 200.
we
No,
don't-
less than 200.
We pay this year's in January, so of next year, so we're only 7, maybe even 6.
Well, at 6, you still double it, it's 200. If it's 7, then it should be less than 200 is the actual.
Right.
So the actual is lower, and then you multiply that
My
times
actual-
2.5,
and
and
then
then
let's
your
say-
budget number should be lower.
I have the actual plus the bills that came in the mail when I'm doing this, that haven't made it to New World yet, because they're not processed yet, so they're all in. It's not a made up number, but
Oh,
it's
the budget number is.
Right.
The budget number is a made up number.
based off real numbers.
Maybe some point out we can see those real numbers. Because I think 592 is artificially high. I think.
Even when I go to budget, like it doesn't roll up, so I have to go down through individually and take every single one and do the numbers.
I get it. I get it.
Well, I was diligently looking over here.
The other thing that I'll tell you, Mr. Hicks, I did provide an electric report to the budget officer for him to do that escalation. So maybe it would be worthwhile to share that actual usage report that I provided to Brian for him to be able to apply the escalator to. Just want to see what the 99,000, what month that 99,000 is.
And is the contract year with the electric company goes from January 1st to December 31st, or you looking at a different contract?
No,
Contract starts in November.
so. So it went from 4 cents a kilowatt hour to 12.
Yeah, so it's about 7 months, Mr. Hicks. That 99,000 represents 7 months.
So the 225 should more than cover it, then, even though we're gonna have higher costs early in the year. It should.
It's
So
gonna
if
be
you multiply that lower number, which is actual times the 2.5, then it should be lower than the 592.
And if you follow trends, it tends to go like this summer was hot. So we haven't seen our summer bills where those chillers were working overtime for a month on end. So
If we've seen 7 months, then we've seen June and July, right?
you probably,
Agree, hot
just probably seeing July's bill now. I would say July to, what are we, September? So it hasn't made it through,
No, I just checked.
just made it through.
The kind of complex
From
is
from
the
July,
99,000 is
July
through
8th to August.
August 4th.
or Whatever.
The last bill that's in here is through August 4th.
Through August 4th, so you still have August, September, October.
Yeah.
December, geez.
You're there, Chris.
See, you were intense. All I want to know is if the carpet shampooer would do furniture and if Matt would come to my couch.
No,
You want to know.
That's why his overtime went up. He's gonna do some eating for you.
yeah.
I will.
I don't have some chemical.
That's right. What's the revenue?
Mr.
I
Mayor,
cried on the couch.
So you know, Matt, this number, that 591,750, Brian put that number. I didn't put that number. Did I help? I gave
Yeah,
him
no,
all
I get
the
it. No, I get it.
information, you know, up to date.
I'd like to drill down and back up to the actuals so we can move forward and see if the final two is accurate or not.
Right, I'll note that for next year, like I have tons of notes from the last 4 years and that one has 3 months.
It's 2.6.
We've got to print them out.
Yeah, he's texting me right now. I think he said that.
He's sandbagging that number right now. That's your savings is.
Mr. Hicks, I want to make sure that you know,
Yeah.
you look at the ones that I-
Next item,
We'll get more.
next item.
So I think he's pretty well covered all that.
Wants to get it up now.
Anything else you want to cover, Matt, or you feel good? Either Matt.
No, I welcome the questions now, so it's not a surprise next year. I mean,
Nobody will think of it next year.
I don't have anything that's really out of, and you see how some of these do roll up for some reason. We have like Burgoyne tends to roll up and this, like in our repair and maintenance annex 1 and Burgoyne school roll up. Or come out individual, I don't know why that is.
Right, so like I said,
I run a
with the
report.
provider,
That's the software, that's not me.
No, I understand.
Right.
So
Electric costs, if it's accurate, we're gonna go up $365,000. Is there something we can do to offset that by
100%. I mean,
hiring somebody for $35,000 to go down and turn all the damn lights off every night? I don't know, like something, there's gotta be a factor that we can.
we're on, you're on the right track. I mean, I'm gonna have solutions when we start talking about this. I mean, there are things that I've actually brought to government ops over the years that I've weighed out as, at the
Yeah.
time, electricity wasn't cheap, there wasn't payback.
Sure.
There is now.
Yep.
You know, there is reason to go back and start looking at it. We just did the lighting project
Right.
downstairs, you know, that's a huge saving. We should be doing everything.
and sooner the better, so you can all in place by the 1st of January when the costs go up.
Now they go up. in
November, middle of November.
Well, there's only so much we can do right now. I mean, we're doing it. And then the more we do, the more big savings we get, you know, so. We're doing that stuff.
Good. Any other
Okay.
questions?
The other thing is, yeah, I do have,
Okay, let's pay attention.
I am asking for 3 positions. First one being a grade 9 maintenance helper, the second one being a grade 10 maintenance worker, and the third one being a grade 12 maintenance mechanic. Approximately about 140,000 in total. Over 100 reasons why we need more help right now, but buildings aren't getting newer, our maintenance is going up, everything from efficiency, cleaning routines to basically the age of buildings. We're maxed out. I can just see us, we're starting to slip back. We're not getting the things that we used to get to, you know, the expectations are just as high as they always have been. So, that's not in the number. These are,
We just had about 140,000.
and some of the thing, like, I know Al set up, like his staff works to get to higher positions, so we do similar, but there's no way to move up in my department unless somebody retires. So even if I have a maintenance helper hired right now, or I have like probably 10 of them, there's no way to move up unless somebody leaves. Like, so even if you're doing the duty of a maintenance mechanic and you're hired as a helper, there's no way to, you know, there's no way to move up unless somebody leaves. Now, that would be, I would come to you, but at the same time, I don't want my staffing pattern to really change for that, because I think, you know, you should have this many helpers, this many workers, but to recruit staff right now, you have to give them a goal to be able to work up to, you know, and some of this helps that, and it also helps our, you know, my staff just finish projects. We've got a lot of projects coming. If you're welcome to come down and look at the projects, you know, we'll go over them all in the government ops, but even the capital projects that we're doing, that we're hiring now, they still require buildings and grounds maintenance time and staff. to assist these projects. You can't do the project out of the jail without two of my guys, you know, being on site. Not necessarily project managing, but they're definitely getting into this room and this secure room and doing any of the stuff that we need to run that, just project support staff.
Would that impact that $60,000 of overtime?
That would not. Those three positions.
Yeah.
Well, that was,
percent?
that's what I'm hoping. That is part of it. I'm hoping that 60,000 would cover, if I did get these three, you know, because they would be required to do snow, so the overtime bill would go up, but I'm hoping that 60,000
Wouldn't that? 3 guys working full time, shouldn't that cut your
overtime down?
overtime down?
Unfortunately, when you come in at 4 AM or 3 AM to do snow, it's overtime.
Okay.
You know, that's our biggest part of the overtime. We'll cut down on overtime in the summer. Our overtime isn't based on, you're gonna, I mean, I'll say it's completely based on that, but it's emergency call to come in to fix something. That's always gonna be overtime. An emergency call for snow, ice. We do, I'm not saying there's a certain percentage of it. I don't ask them to come in early or work late, but lots of times if my guys come in early, they say, hey, we got this project before cars get here. I'd like to come in at 5. Lots of times they'll go home early that day, so it's not overtime. I try to save my overtime really for winter emergencies.
Okay. All right, thanks, Matt. Anything else from Matt outside of the budget?
So do we want to talk about rolling over into the capital working group a little bit? So there's a couple of things for the capital working group. As far as the budget is concerned, first we'll take on that last year when we did the budget, and on the final day, there were budget amendments made. And at that point, there had been $1 million set inside the budget for the capital plan. The decision was made that day to take it out, and if we made 25 million, we dropped it back to 24 million, and if we made $25 million in sales tax, then that $1 million would be refunded, so to speak, back into the capital plan. Al feels that we're gonna make the 25 million with no problem, probably gonna overshoot and even go above 26 million. But we'd like permission to make sure that, I guess we do that through finance half of this, that when he hits the 25 million, that the $1 million that was discussed and promised back in last budget season gets transferred back into the capital plan.
I'd like Mr. Hicks to make that motion. since-
Isn't that a finance motion rather than a government option?
Well, we're in finance.
Yeah, but you're here instead of Brian, so I didn't really count it. So we're still in IT or something.
It's better doing it at the end of this, Ryan.
Yeah, if Val says we're gonna make it, and let's move the million, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Matt, oh, you're finance, go right ahead there, Luann.
Motion by Matt, second by Jimmy. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What I would like, I'm respectfully asking, is consensus that when it happens, I can come back, because I don't want the resolution until we actually hit it. Is it my belief we'll hit it? Absolutely.
That's what the resolution is supposed to be, when you hit it, you can move it.
Correct.
But you'll see an actual budget amendment at finance
Right.
when we get, that's, I just want to make sure
just wanna
that I
make sure.
understand
When you have the motion.
what my direction is. I'm not comfortable putting it in the budget until we get there.
Oh,
Do I
yeah.
think we're gonna get there? Absolutely.
We're gonna move from here to the real finance.
Right.
That's my motion.
But it may be November, sir, is what I'm saying.
We just want to make sure that everybody remembers and that it gets done.
Any reconciliations before the end of
So-
the year that could affect that.
So they'll never take money from, I not
They
heard
just won't
anything.
give you all of it.
Right, so I may be down from last year, but my deposit's never zero. So once we hit 25, you can't go below.
Gotcha.
Right, so with that 25, I want to wait till we get to that trigger, because you can't then go below that.
So you don't want to wait 30 days just to be safe.
I do want to wait.
No, because you want to see it in this year.
All
I know.
Aye.
all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Al, is there anything in this budget transferring $1 million to capital for next year?
That's the next question. So, coming out of the capital plan working group and taking out the bumps and the roller coasters and trying to make a real logical plan and to be able to move forward is we're requesting that a line item be put in for $1 million to be given to the capital plan project as part of the budget, because otherwise you're gonna keep hitting the highs and lows. And the buildings aren't in the shape they should be in. When they start falling down around us, is not the time to be trying to fix them. We should be planning for the future. That's the work of the capital plan group working on it. And it should have something in the line so that Matt is able to move forward with the projects, because there's so many steps in every project so that we can continue to move forward. So the recommendation from the working group this morning was to request $1 million to be added to the budget for our line item for the capital project. Did that put it all right? Yeah. Not in there now, that's why we're asking.
Page 87, that's where. Where it was. Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Daryl,
Thank you, Daryl.
do I have a second? Motion second by Sue.
And John,
John?
any further discussion? Dan Shaw?
Part of the mission of this working group was to identify the needs. Is that been done? So we have an understanding of what the $1 million is going to be used for?
We're working on identifying the programs as we go, but if there's no money set aside to start doing these projects, and the amount of steps that's involved, I'm sorry, it is finance, the amount of steps that are involved to get to these projects, we need to start getting the funding there and to get rid of the roller coaster effect and to hopefully have these steps in place before some of these buildings.
I heard all that. I just asked if you identified what the needs are.
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
So we have that somewhere.
We have that, it'll be introduced as soon as we get all the numbers and can plan on what we're doing for the future.
You've seen it too, Supervisor. You've got a copy of the 5-year capital plan. That, if my memory is, it's got about 2.8, 2.9.
So in the, right, there's already been enough projects identified that the 1 million isn't gonna cover them anyways, so it's just really a shot into the project. And that's everything from repairing and replacing stuff, not necessarily, the engineering costs. So there's already plenty of projects that have been identified right in the capital plan that would definitely take that.
So I can get
We have handed that out before.
I can get a copy of that.
Yeah, it's in the portal. Yeah, you can get a copy. Matt Hicks? Oh, wait a minute, it's tiny.
Al, would that be 995001 interfund transfer to capital project? The top of
Yes, sir.
87?
Top of page 87.
Okay, so we adopted the budget of 22, not putting anything in there, but we amended it to 2 million. Where did that 2 million come from?
Was that the ARPA funds?
That's what I'm asking out. We actually did that, yes, with the ARPA funds. That's, I have two questions. That's the first one. What did that finance move $2 million from someplace to the capital fund?
Okay.
Because if that's the case already, we're gonna put another $1 million to make it 3 when we transfer, when we get our sales tax number?
Question where that came from.
Well, your sales tax number is 1, and then if it goes in the budget,
No, but-
but she's asking for another, that would be 2 on top of it.
No, the adopted budget is 0. We haven't amended the sales tax number yet, so that 1 isn't in the 2.
Right.
I was thinking.
So just looking at.
I'm thinking you're right, because we just did the 2 lines for the 4 and we had funds there to allocate. We just did that at the Friday's board meeting.
It's probably right. I just want to verify that's the case.
So I got the sheet in front of me that says that ARPA money for funding for 40 Amp Barn and Middle Falls Barn was $5 million total.
Right.
Now, memory serves me, didn't we transfer some of that money, so we're ahead of schedule for ARPA? So I keep-
Because we have to start paying.
Well, based upon Cassie's, point, we need to put money in there. We're already moving 2 million. We're gonna move another $1 million this year. It's 3 million. And what's the total in the whole capital
So for
I was
2000,
breaking it down.
for 2023, not where the 2 million came from, we have a project estimate of $8,505,000. That includes two bonds. We have project cash of $270,000. We have debt service of $1.5 million. And ARPA funding was $5,403,920,000. So the total unfunded for just 2023 alone is $1,331,080. But then the next year, we're also up to, already in 2004, we're up to 750 project estimates, and I think there was more coming in from that. Because we did that DPW shop
We moved
engineering.
something up.
Yeah, so we just moved.
So in May, Supervisor Hicks, there was a resolution that sent $2 million to the capital plan for the LEC roof replacement
That's right. That's what we
from
did.
general,
From general, not from ARPA.
Not from ARPA.
not from ARPA, no.
That's gonna go out to bid soon, so it's not done right yet.
And that LEC roof replacement is part of the whole capital project.
Yes.
It's the thing we're talking about here. Part of what Dave's talking about too.
Yes.
It was actually that was jail roof replacement was in 2022 capital plan.
Yeah.
And we moved
So that's why we moved
$2 million from the general fund to the capital plan to cover those costs.
to cover those costs.
Correct.
Are those costs part of the $8 million you just talked about a minute ago?
No.
So there'll be another budget amendment to make it $3 million in November at some point.
Yes.
Right, to replace the money we discussed last year.
For fiscal year 2022, and we still don't know the exact cost of the replacement, but there was unfunded of 138,000, so we have to come up with 138,000, depending on the cost of the LEC. Roof replacement.
I think my estimate is $2,138,000. We said, let's put 200 there, so it's there. Start.
So the question is, you want to amend the budget now? Put $1 million into this line
Before the end, yes,
for 2023?
for
Yes.
2023 budget, yes.
So I'm just going off the top of my head, I'm thinking that's about 3% of the tax levy. So we bump the total to 4, we will go from 1 to 4, I'll put in $1 million in here. Maybe just under that, 3.8.
Close.
Okay, so we would go from 1% to 3.8%. Is that still under our cap?
Oh, yeah. All right. Since the cap scenario is around, my memory is there's one of the ones that's always interesting is there's what I call a break-even cap number. And that's where your carry forward is the same number. Because it's the lesser of 1.5% of what you can levy or what you didn't levy. So that's money that you can carry forward to next year without losing any future dollars. That number was 3.56 this year, because it was the number that's in my head. I don't remember what I can pull up the sheet. But
We're gonna be about
percentage-
3.8, if we put $1 million in there.
So our actual maximum was closer to 5 and change.
Okay.
Because you didn't, again, it was a 0 for 22. So
Right.
you have that carry forward plus the allowable this year for your max levy.
Okay.
Any other questions? For the motion and second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed to do it now.
We're opposing it, we're requesting it to go in the budget.
So figure it out.
We'll wait till the end. We should wait till the end and then see if we can put it in. First budget workshop.
Everybody else gets to put in their request at the first budget workshop and then they go through, so this is why I requested it here.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
For me and for
with-
Dave, because Dave gets
For the-
specific.
For the group, because what I don't want to lose sight of is the very first conversation we had this morning, where we also want to try to commit to a new $300,000 a year for IT. So possibly your $1 million could be 7 to the capital project and 3 to IT. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the IT portion that we want to start smoothing out as well. I just want to make sure that it's not 1 million to the capital plan and 3 to Terry, or maybe it is, which is a total 1.3. I just want to make sure that the group doesn't lose sight of the first conversation for smoothing out Terry's capital needs too.
Well, both of them are very expensive capital needs, and it's gonna, as the longer the can gets kicked down the road, the bigger the kick in the teeth is gonna be when we're staring at, has to be done now and not.
Okay.
I think we had. Yeah, Board of Elections.
Board of Elections.
Board of Elections, they're sitting out there with their heads hanging down. I think they're asleep.
They're gonna tell us the billing costs are going up.
Oh, Jeff. He's
No,
not
that's
coming
not
with
all.
you.
It's actually pretty
Here you
flat.
go, right here.
Actually, their budget's pretty flat.
But it's still, we can still make that service.
23 years, you guys have a good job.
Why is it funny, Tom's throwing you under the bus, so you will be coming in with you.
5 for the, and then 37.
537. 37.
Hey there.
Good, how are you?
Oh, he's been up there.
I know, you guys were really doing something, sitting out there, waiting for him to jump over the railing.
Being,
Okay,
oh, zero.
Okay, income.
not much.
We generate a bunch for you.
The previous year's grants, the
Yes,
103 and the 93, those are not available. Okay.
we only have one grant left. It's a technology grant for about 70,000 that IT is going to use.
Expenses. Yep. 37.
Talk about earnings, or just go right to-
We did
You
earnings.
can, right, you probably just hit the high points, anything
You're
that's
flat.
different.
You're asking the same as last year. Get the rest of the department heads on board with that. I like the way you think.
I don't know what we talk about, inspector or anything like that. We'll just go right to the telephone down the line there.
Big picture, whatever,
Okay.
Good.
you're
Yeah.
on flat, you can say.
You'll notice the telephone we did go up quite a bit, it's because, what we're doing is, now with our, electronic poll books, we're doing, the MiFi connections with the poll sites. Because, and with 10X, we have a precinct central, and that's, we can connect on our computers right to the poll sites. So, eye on our, poll books, make sure they don't have any issues at the poll site. Using Verizon, so that's why you'll see the jump.
We had we were using AT&T and Verizon. We got rid of the AT&T duplication. Wasn't working as well. All the poll sites had that connection except for two, good old Hebron and Dresden. Right here, Signal, those two places, both sites. And we've also learned better on how to manage that. Verizon would not let us prorate to a month, partial month. I'm sorry, AT&T would let us prorate to a month. Verizon will, so when we cut it off, we're not getting charged for it.
Also, of course, postage is always going up. When we do our mail check cards, there's, we have, through NTS, there's, and there's a good charge for postage to our mail check cards. Plus, we have our licensing fee through the post office. That's a good chunk. And then we always get money for cards that get kicked back. We have to keep a balance for the post office.
So Jeff, just a second, go back to postage for a second.
Yeah,
You had $18,000 in the adopted budget for 2022. You spent 21,000 and we still have 4 months to go. Is 18,000 going to be enough for next year?
Well, we have 3 elections this year.
Yeah,
We didn't
primaries.
anticipate an extra election. Also,
Back to 2 next year.
the state threw at us that when somebody requests an absentee application in the mail, we have to provide postage to that local ballot back to us. And then when we mail the absentee ballot out, we have to provide a postage stamp for it to come back in. Those are expenses we didn't have before. To give you an example, we're mailing out 1,000 perms this week. Postage.
With postage down. What's the-
Well, we have a permit. Which,
I think we're gonna get help with that. We're keeping
Yeah.
track of our postage, because we're gonna get reimbursed for some of that.
So basically, you're pretty flat all across the board.
What about your new machines we're talking about eating?
Yeah, Hart's gonna be coming on, well, Clear Valley's here on the 13th. And Hart, they're coming to do a presentation on the 28th at 9:30. That other voting machine vendor. We're still in, when you get certified from the state. On our last state call, they're hoping, they don't think they won't be certified by the end of this year, but they're thinking hopefully beginning of next year. So like I say, we don't want to wait to try to do the rollover for 24 for a presidential year.
Right.
We want to be done, we'd like to do it by next year, say by November.
But it's not included in the budget.
No,
It's on Mr. Hankey's ARPA radar.
Oh.
yes, and Brian.
and Brian, it's full
What's the cost?
About 400.
It's been right around that for
Sounds about what's left in the.
500,000.
Tourism budget. Yeah.
For the internet. No, for the internet.
Yeah, internet.
So there's
three pieces to
pieces.
Yeah, 9:30.
So we're there, because we have a finance meeting. So, and so, and the supervisor want to go see them.
Try to get it earlier.
Couldn't anybody go for the other one?
Yes.
I did.
Whoever we choose, either have to be on state contract or we're gonna have to bid it. We can't just choose.
One's on state contract now, the other three have applied and hope to get it early next year,
Yes,
So there could be multiple state contracts.
up to
Yes.
4.
yes.
Which, you know what, he has nothing.
What could go wrong?
There's three pieces to the machines we're talking about. Like we talked about, we have a machine that's now up to the internet that we create the ballots on, the whole program. To make the machines work, we gotta start with that. That is gonna be outdated, because Windows 7 is gonna disappear. Guess what? This machine ain't gonna work anymore, because the program. Then, so you create those, and you create the ballot, and the ballots for the machines to go out to the election site. And they read the ballots, of course. The machines we have right now are 14 years old, they were like that for 10 years. And if we switch this, they're not gonna work in this, so we have to buy the machines. And the third piece is that we have scanners that scan the absentee ballots for us automatically, which we already have.
That's our clear ballot system, which we can only use those.
Right.
That's no problem.
We're trying to make sure that this system, the other three, will work. And
In 2010, when we got these machines, there was a HAPA grant that funded them. Is there
yes,
any hope that there might be some?
Not at this
Yeah.
point.
we're talking,
But the only problem, we got, like I said, we purchased a clear ballot high-speed scanner for our absentee.
The last one was a federal program, so I didn't know with the current climate, if there would be some election funding in federal.
and it may pop up, who knows?
Sure.
But at this point, no.
What was the cost? You said it, you thought it was gonna be, you mentioned it.
450 to 500.
450 to 500.
We're cutting back on the number of machines that we need, we're cutting back on the number of assistance machines that we need for the handicap.
Well, no, we gotta have.
Well, we have to have one, but we have bought extras before, not buying as many extras.
But you have to have one at each post. Don't get away from that. You
And
gotta
then
have,
the wonderful thing about them is they've upgraded them, they're so much easier to use. Or the ones we have right now, it'll take you 10 minutes to plug one in and get it up and going. The new machines, you plug them in. and they're ready to go.
also, they're more user friendly, more
Yeah,
technology.
easier to
better
use.
Technology.
I was just a little concerned that, see, it's not in your budget, we don't have it on the capital plan. I just wanna make sure somewhere along the line we.
We had asked whether we should put it in.
All right. Any other requests?
We did submit, told just to update, we did submit our travel plan to Deb and Melissa, we do attend 2 conferences a year. We go to one in the winter, it's usually in Albany, and then we attend one in the summer, which is, you don't know at this point. We find out that the winter one, which we do. It's in our, we budgeted for in our conference. And we did ask for, to talk to Danielle about 40 hours for the deputies that go from 35 to 40 hours.
Bite your heads off.
No,
We shouldn't be so nervous.
I'm nervous all the time, 24/7.
Thank you.
We have more. So we have the video conferencing policy.
Oh, okay.
Kind of run over.
You didn't tell them the new, or every time you put your ballot in, you get a discount coupon from mypillow.com.
Democrat, what do you get?
I think this is a now question or when you're on page, well, the very first page is like 110 what occurs there. Got appropriations, net, you've got estimated revenue net, and then you've got, it says less unexpended fund balance, but that's just a number we're throwing in there to balance the budget. And the 35,175,000, what is that? Is that the maximum that can be, that's 1%?
1%.
And now, when you voted just now to add $1 million for the capital project, did that bump up one of those last two numbers, either?
More fund balance or higher taxes.
Right, but
That's it.
it adds $1 million to one of those two numbers, correct? Well, again, it's got to add it to both because you got to balance this. So we'd be up to 7,317,000,000 of shortfall that we'd have to use fund balance on. The only other way is to add to what we expect for sales tax, correct?
We also have the 300,000 from IT.
Today's just the first pass, so.
No, I'm just trying, what that does when you voted $1 million.
One of those numbers has to go up.
Right, okay, that's what I'm, so we just added $1 million to that, if that passes.
But you recommended to the budget officer to find a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, you'll find the easiest way is either your base tax or you use fund balance. Or you go back and start cutting the budget, which we're reviewing now. So I mean, that's a big number. I just wanted everybody to be on the same page when we leave.
We got it.
Thank you all for here.
Yep.
Thank
okay.
you.
Run. Okay.
Oh, it was, I think.
Oh, who has that?
I sent out the video conferencing rules. It mirrors the open meetings model. So
What would be the designated public meeting locations? Is that something that's determined by what?
So
Is there a list?
as long as you go, one thing that hasn't really changed is as long as you go, and I'm gonna pick on Mr. Wilson. If he goes to the town hall, that's a designated public meeting location. As long as he tells Debbie ahead of time so that we can notice it. Okay? So somebody has to be, you have to have a foreign present at public location. So, okay, and then you're good. I suppose your house, if you want to make it a designated public location, could be one, but I
If it's
think,
designated, shouldn't it be on a list someplace? Like, is every town hall a designated?
no, it's designated by you as the public place you're at.
I could have multiple?
No, you're going
Where
to be
you-
in one
where
place.
you
No,
want
like,
it. It's where
It
you're.
has to be publicly accessible, handicapped accessible, everything accessible. The person has to be able to see the meeting, just like we're seeing the meeting here, all that stuff. So as long as you're in a public place, and I would say I'm using town halls as an example, because that's an easy one, right? Town hall, as long as people in the town hall can see, they're not like leaning over your shoulder at the computer screen kind of thing,
So
you
you
know?
feel it protected somewhere.
Well, they have to be able, I think they have to be able to see it in a meaningful way and then be able to see the interactions that are happening in a meaningful way. What's that gonna mean? Some court will tell us that when we get sued, okay? So there's no definition of that. Or you can be anywhere in the world you want, as long as you have the required reason, the extraordinary circumstance.
So
Is what?
Well, we tried to have that determined and people didn't want it to be determined, so it's not determined in this policy. Again, we will find out when somebody guesses wrong, when somebody sues us and we're told that that wasn't an extraordinary. To me, extraordinary is unanticipated, out of the routine. I don't know how you schedule a vacation as an unanticipated circumstance. My dad had a stroke and I had to go to Florida, that's one of the things that's actually mentioned in there. Caregiving responsibilities and things like that.
So on the public place for a second. You use the example of town halls. However, if Matt was in Florida and he was staying in a hotel, he could have wanted to say, my public place is the lobby.
I don't think I would do that. I wouldn't do that. I'd make it a public.
Which makes my point. One of the designated public meeting locations. To me, that means they are designated, they are set. This is what they are. It's determined. It's not vague. It's designated, and there's one of that list.
If you want to do that, that's.
Well,
I don't think so, because you don't want to do my town hall, because there's no way in hell you could ever do this.
right, so it wouldn't be. So you can go to the White Creek Town Hall. That could be one of the designated places. You could go there and zoom in from there. But shouldn't we have a list that's designated, one of the
Like a
designated?
standing list.
I'm not working with it.
Mr. Ferguson's around so many places, he can't get.
You still need to go let Debbie know which one of those you're gonna come from, because you don't want somebody showing up at the White Creek Town Hall when you're not there and nobody else there to let them in, right? So they're not gonna be designated in terms of,
Always.
your presence is gonna be the designated, right? So if you have a list and say, these are the designated places, somebody can look at that list and go, oh, I can see this meeting in any one of those places. I'll go there, and you're not there.
I think for Matt's sake, what he's referring to is having, like, these are designated places for us as supervisors to be able to,
Tangible list.
yeah. That makes sense. Right.
Yeah, but not
I'm looking at a
for the-
menu rather that you're gonna choose from. But they have to be publicly accessible.
So right here, you still have the option of not doing anything, people. We don't have to do this. This was an option.
This is always an option. I'm on vacation.
I'm sorry. I'm employed, I'm not.
That's an option.
I'm fishing, so I'm not.
Yeah, so you don't,
They're not
or you always have the
designated
option of showing
places.
up.
Or you just don't show up, right?
Right,
Right, which is the simplest, is
Right.
the old way. In other words,
Right.
you have to come if you
So-
want to be heard.
So in order to implement, in order to allow people to attend by video and not be in a public place, you have to have all these, you have to have a local law, which we've done. And then you have to have rules and regulations to implement the local law, which is what we're trying to do today. You don't do either one of those things, there's a reason Mr. Campbell's not on video this morning. Not me.
But you can watch, if you want to watch.
You can live,
watch,
so
right.
live streaming out has nothing to do with it. Okay,
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
only,
continue live.
so that has, yeah, you can broadcast, live stream, whatever you wanna call it, anytime you wanna do that. This is to allow members to attend that aren't physically present in the room. You don't, you wanna say you got, either you must be present to win, then just say you must be present to win, and all of this goes to the wayside. Like you did for the other hundreds and how many years we did it.
Dan?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on Dan's comment about if you want to be here, you gotta be heard. People get sick, people get injured, they may not be able to travel here. I know on the floor, you made the comment that when this first came up about the fact that, the people have represented you to be here to represent them. Well, if you're sick or you're injured and you can't be here, then there's no one to participate for your town because your deputy can't do it. And, it could be an injury, could have been a result of a car accident, could be a health issue. that she can't make it, so then whatever that might be, the 1 to 2 or 3 months that she could be out recuperating, that town has no representation. So you can't have it, we can't have it both ways. We can't say you need to be in your seat to participate. We never had this automation before, this availability to utilize it. And to me, it doesn't matter which way we go, but I think that we need to understand that we have a tool there now that can give the supervisors the opportunity to represent their town if they can't be here for whatever those reasons may be. And those things do exist.
I think if you get a supervisor that bastardizes the system, the voters are gonna have their say in that. So, I mean, we're 2-year election cycle, so if you decide that you wanna zoom into every single meeting as a supervisor, I'm sure the person that's gonna run against you is gonna emphasize that, you know.
But I'm just the opposite. You put me on the opposite side. I don't want to zoom in. I think.
Well, I don't want, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so, and I think it puts, number one, it's gonna get really complicated when somebody says, okay, I wanna do it, and I'm gonna designate a certain place, and 2 things occur. They notify Debbie when it's too late to notify, or they change their minds, well, I can make it. And you've got a spot that nobody's there, and yet somebody had to set that system all up in case the public shows.
That's a good point. I think.
Or something.
And, you know, I just think you're making work for yourself.
So I want to say this because we have people that travel 45 minutes one way to get here. And
That's
people,
Yes,
That's
it's
speeding.
speeding to make it.
but we also have, some people also have other responsibilities, but I think it's important for people to hear the committee meeting. And we need to, in my opinion, we need to provide a vehicle that if Daryl or someone else who has other duties and works someplace else, instead of taking a whole day off, come down here for a half-an-hour meeting, and they spend an hour and a half to 2 hours to travel for a half-an-hour meeting, we should take them in consideration to help them be able to participate. Because when they come to the finance meeting or the board meeting, what was discussed in those committee meetings is very important, and I'd like to encourage everyone to take advantage if they can. So if we can provide, that Putnam may be one of the designated set, and he will know ahead of time what his schedule is and say, we'll look at it. So, you know, I think that's important to do to make sure that we can do it. And I know other people want to come to other meetings and they can't because of their time schedule. So, you know, there are a few of us that are dedicated who doesn't have other jobs or other things, but there are people who have other duties, other responsibilities they have to meet.
What's the requirement? How long before the meeting do you have to? 5 days?
I said 5 days to get the notice out, and then if it's extraordinary, hopefully within 48.
Okay.
Or the last minute 24. I mean, we send it to the media and stuff via email.
I'd say the extraordinary is kind of the opposite. The more notice you have, probably the less
It's
extraordinary.
extraordinary.
So by
I tell you,
designating,
in 5 days, I'm gonna go out and get hit by a car, so I won't be.
by designating someplace, then I have to make sure it's compliant to public access, ADA compliance, handicap parking spaces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Yep.
This public has to be able to attend. So
What
you know,
about presentation?
That's why you set them ahead of time so you know what the place is, so it has all those things.
Yep.
and the president, and they have to be able to observe the presentation.
Not looking at your computer screen.
Well, I mean, however you do it, I'm just saying that if you have 15 people holding around your desk, that's probably not. Yeah, it's-
If you carry it into the men's room, so you don't miss.
Why would you take
Everybody's
it in
got
there?
it with you.
There's a whole nother can of worms that we aren't gonna cover. Jay?
If you're under extraordinary, does it have to be a public?
No, that's the exception, but you still have, you know, so everybody can't be, let's say we have a really bad week and everybody's extraordinary, you can't do that. You have to have a quorum present in a public place.
In one or multiple public
Places, right? So if everybody's extraordinary, if everybody gets COVID on the same day and calls in sick, we're not having a meeting, just like we didn't before.
Seems that I don't have a problem with the policy. I cannot access from Cambridge, so I will probably be here. But all kinds of companies in the world and all kinds of things do business through video conferencing all of the time. I think we're in the dark ages if we don't at least make it accessible or an option. Because
Businesses are subject to the open meetings law.
Right.
You're talking about apples and oranges here.
No, but I'm saying is that there's lots of groups and organizations that do video conferencing and conduct business and have viable meetings. So I think just going, well, you should be here because that's the only way you can participate is a bad argument. But like that's Dan's opinion, my opinion is as long as you're in contact, Lord knows Daryl participates more than enough, even when he's not here, or Jay or Sue or anybody. I still think it should be an option.
So the open meetings law is not geared toward anyone. This might be a surprise, but it's not geared toward, it's geared toward the public. Being able to observe and participate when they're allowed to participate. They don't care about your community change, quite frankly. These changes were meant so that there would be maximum opportunity for the public to observe and participate. That's the whole point of the open meetings law. So when you're thinking about it, think about, you know, I guess we like to have everybody participate, but it's not your participation.
So to your point, they can come here.
The public is.
Yeah, they can go to any one of those public spots.
Or they can zoom in and observe.
That's why, right, or they can just watch.
So it really doesn't matter. I'm sitting at home with a injured ankle, they're still observing me when they're on Zoom, if they're on Zoom, zooming in.
Yes, but
You're not, that's not a public place, it's a handicap accessible in your living room.
But it's a,
It's emergency.
It's an emergency.
it's designed to keep, just like the local meetings law forbids the lunchtime. Let's all go out to lunch and we have a forum and we start discussing business and hey, we all get back, we ought to vote in favor of this. That's not allowed. This is designed to keep the video equivalent of that from happening.
So I think this policy,
That designates Granville. Granville's internet is out that day. What happens?
Well, then you can't participate anyway, because it's video. You wouldn't count toward a forum.
What about the people? We have to stop it.
No. As long as we have a quorum here, we don't.
The only way I can participate is at my computer and my town hall, even if it's working that day.
But I thought
And 10 people show up.
Public, if the public and the Wi-Fi is out, Granville plugs it that day, and somebody doesn't want to speak. How's the meeting proceed?
Meeting can proceed. As soon as we have a quorum here, the meeting can proceed.
are you talking about mass?
Mass attendance is part of that. Meeting's off.
Then the meeting's off, because Matt, we need Matt to have a quorum, then yes, the meeting's off.
You're talking about public comment into the meeting from the town hall. If the public member would say, I would participate, they want to be able to. Correct.
If Matt couldn't, if we needed, so we needed 4 people. And we had 3 bodies here, and Matt was the 4th, and Matt's internet went down, we wouldn't have a quorum, we would therefore couldn't have a meeting. Participation, public participation, whatever, we wouldn't have enough physical bodies present under the rules to go. So we wouldn't have a quorum, we would have to, just like if you got something happening, you make it here.
At the Dan's point, with the public be disgruntled because I plan on attending this meeting, you said it was open at this location. I went to this location, it's not there.
Well, then they couldn't attend the meeting. The bigger problem would be is if Matt wasn't the 4th guy, he was the 5th guy, and they went to that place.
Yeah.
And that's, it was down there, right? Yes, they would be disgruntled.
Yeah, they're disgruntled. So we'll get some backlash from that, probably.
so I think we vetted this out when we did local law, because this is nothing more than interpretation when we did local law.
Yes, correct.
So I would make a motion that we adopt the policy. So in compliance with local law.
With implementation in the rules of the board, which requires a 2/3 vote. Is that the way we're gonna do it, or are we gonna have to stand alone?
I think we go through the process. Before it's fully vetted. If we're gonna do it, correct?
I would recommend you do it that way, because it's another rule about how the board conducts its meetings and everything. But so you don't have to do that.
From this point, we move to the full board for vote.
And it would require 2/3 because it's amending the rules. of the-
Which is what it should be.
Correct.
Okay.
What committee is moving?
The government officers.
So it's moved by Dave, seconded by Daryl.
So it's just government ops that can vote on it, right?
Until full board meeting.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna channel my day and a half. I just don't think it's correct. I am opposed.
Doing
So did
that.
it carry?
I'm not gonna go around Sunday. Make sure
He's
you're.
not, I
aware
know.
of the vote.
Three. No,
That's what it is.
Mr. Hicks was the only no on government.
all right, so we're doing that five. All right, so we're passed.
Has to go to the board.
Yes, this will then require 2/3 vote to move.
You guys want it, that's their policy.
Be more aggravated. I don't want
I'm more than happy to open the Putnam Town Hall, which is configured like this, by the way. I would have to ask people.
Which is no different than we do in a town. Okay, adjourn.
Now built-in people
Anything
crowd
else?
around your
Yeah,
screen.
let's go.
I gotta read finance meeting.
Took it out of my living room, put it on the wall.
Nice.